We're live.
Very good. We are recording and we're now on YouTube. So we will resume today's regular council meeting of the Township of Cavan Monaghan. There was no report coming from closed. So our first item is our presentation, item 7.1, Peterborough Police Services, Policing Services Proposal. Chief Scott Gilbert, Deputy Chief Tim Parkinson, Inspector John Lyons, Inspector Neil Collins, Inspector Jamie Hartnett, and Finance Manager Ia Nijgen. And our clerk is in the process of letting everybody in. So I am ready, Madam Clerk, as long as once you got everybody in, just let me know, and then we will proceed with our presentation.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, I believe we have all of our participants.
Fantastic. All right, I will turn it over to Chief Gilbert then, if you wish to start, and then you can hand it off accordingly, whoever has the various speaking roles. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor McFadden and Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Moore, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Belch. We're grateful for the opportunity to present the Peterborough Police Service policing proposal for our continued policing of Cavan Monaghan through to December 31st of 2026. As part of our proposal, we have included our 2020 to 2023 strategic plan, as well as our 2020 divisional policing report on all of the areas that we currently police. First off, I want to thank everyone for working with us through the first contract and the recent one-year extension. It has been a learning experience, I think, for both parties, particularly as we face the challenge of delivering services to the community during COVID-19. As you pointed out, Mayor McFadden, I do have several senior command staff members with me virtually to assist with the presentation and answer any questions that you may have. Since you've already introduced them, I won't repeat myself, but I am also aware that there are members of our Police Services Board that are also attending through the YouTube link for the meeting. If we could go to the next slide, please, slide 2. So as I said a moment ago, our proposal will take both of us to the end of December 2026 if you accept it. Essentially, that's a 5-year and 3-month term, and I'll explain the rationale for this timing in greater detail further on in the presentation. It's also based on us continuing to provide the 5 core functions of policing as required under the Police Services Act to all the residents of Cavan Monaghan, as we've already been doing for the last several years. Next slide, please. I assure you, councillors and Mayor McFadden, I don't endeavor to make this a death by PowerPoint for all of us. I know everybody can read, so I'm not going to go through every slide to you. So, as you know, our current contract that we've been operating under started January 1st of 2015, and it's been based on providing 2 dedicated officers to the township. Sorry, we should be on slide 3. My apologies. Next slide. Slide 3. This was further particularized in the contract as 1 dedicated community patrol officer to Cavan Monaghan for 24 hours per day for a total of 8,760 hours of service per year, and 1 dedicated community patrol officer for 12 hours per day for an additional 4,380 hours of service. In total, 13,140 hours of dedicated police service per year. In addition to the dedicated officers, Peterborough Police Service provides access to a number of other departments, including backup officers as needed, administrative support positions, specialized units such as our Mobile Crisis Intervention Team, which is a partnership between a trained police officer and a member of the Canadian Mental Health Association to deal with people in crisis directly in the community, and therefore try and avoid needless apprehensions and tying up resources in the hospital. It's best to keep people in the community and provide treatment in the community where possible. We also have a special victims unit, a number of community services officers that deliver important programs directly to students in school. And Peterborough Police Service is also one of only a half dozen services in the province to have its own in-house victim services unit. This is an award-winning unit, and it's staffed by 2 civilians and a victim services dog named Pixie. Next slide, please. Slide 4 is just our organizational chart, and it provides a little bit of insight in all of the different functions of policing that we're able to provide to all the members of our community. Next slide, please. Our current authorized complement of civilian and sworn staff, 141 frontline officers, crime prevention, community policing officers, and they're supported by 81 civilian specialists. Next slide, please. And next slide. Peterborough Police Service has been a leader in community policing since 1978. Community policing is based on a team approach of police and the public working together. During the past year, this has meant even more as we've all faced the challenge of COVID-19 and having to do things a little bit differently in order to achieve results. We thank our community partners and their ongoing support and collaboration that has helped us to ensure the safety of all of our communities. We've always taken a collaborative approach to the work that we do with our communities. And this collaborative approach also extends to our Police Services Board, when through our recent strategic plan development, they invited participation and feedback from Cavan Monaghan, as well as Lakefield and other areas of the city of Peterborough. The Peterborough Police Service is the founding agency for the Peterborough Drug Strategy, and our Community Development and Engagement Coordinator, a civilian position that exists nowhere else in policing in the province, is the current chair of the Peterborough Drug Strategy. Our service has received numerous Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police provincial awards for the work of our traffic unit, as well as with the drug strategy. We have forged strong relationships with numerous community partners and agencies, and we've also written several initial grant applications to help with outreach, as well as being able to assist them in better delivering service to the community. Some of these grants have resulted in the creation of the MSORT team, which is the Mobile Support Overdose Resource Team. Peterborough Police is also part of the early emergency response regarding harmful drugs in our community and works closely with other public health and emergency services partners to ensure that all are advised of a crisis in the community before it becomes even worse. Peterborough Police Service is also the founding agency of Pedal for Hope, an annual bike ride to raise funds and awareness for children suffering from cancer. Officers and civilians are involved with over 100 provincial and community agencies, including the Torch Run for Special Olympics, which Peterborough Police Service has been recognized as a leader in supporting. Again, Pedal for Hope, Canadian Mental Health Association, Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, Big Brothers, Big Sisters are just some of the agencies that we're actively involved with. In our promotional processes and our policies, we recognize the volunteer work of our members in the community as a further indicator of the importance of community outreach and engagement. Next slide, please. At the Peterborough Police Service, we employ a generalist constable and team policing concept of solving problems. Our generalist constables are frontline officers who are trained to handle almost all investigations from start to finish, from initial report to writing search warrants, to writing production orders, to applying for arrest warrants, and then preparing cases for court. Team policing, is one of the tenets of community-based policing, where officers on each shift are assigned to one of the 6 designated areas that we police on a long-term basis to help identify issues and challenges and be a direct contact in problem solving and working with the community. Team 6 is assigned to Cavan Monaghan, and all of those officers meet on a regular basis to share issues they have identified and problem solve. Next slide, please. And next slide. In addition to our authorized strength of 222 members, we currently have 30 auxiliary officers who volunteer their time to assist with service delivery in the community. These are community members who are not paid for their activities, but have volunteered to help police their community. Most recently, you may have seen a number of them on the news, as they've been assisting with crowd and traffic control issues during our downtown anti-mask protests in Peterborough. Our K9 unit consists currently of Constable Cowie and his K9 partner Isaac, as well as Constable Addy and his K9 partner Chase. And they've been deployed numerous times to answer calls for service in our community. And they've also been an instrumental tool for our emergency response team. They are also frequently called upon to assist neighboring police services such as Coburg, Port Hope, and the city of Kawartha Lakes to help deal with issues in their communities. Next slide, please. It's also worth highlighting that the Peterborough Police Service has a 52.9% solved clearance rate for our criminal code offenses, which is above both the provincial and national averages. Our partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association, as well as Kawartha Pine Ridge, is proving to be very successful at a time when there is an increase in calls, and our mobile crisis intervention team is requested to help those in crisis, both at the time of the incident as well as shortly afterward and for follow-up visits. Next slide, please. This is just a line graph illustrating our clearance rate for the last 15 years compared to both the provincial and national averages. Next slide, please. In recent years, several specialized units have been added to the Peterborough Police Service Investigative Division. Among them are E-Crimes Unit, our Special Victims Unit, which includes internet child exploitation, and works with our Sex Crimes Unit to target those preying on our youth. And they also work both with police services provincially, nationally, and internationally to identify children that are being put at risk and victimized by sexual predators. As well, our Elder Abuse and Domestic Violence Coordinator reviews all incidents and investigations to ensure that we're following proper protocols and procedures and that all checks and balances for risk management have been addressed. Officers are dedicated to these units. They are highly specialized, highly trained, and they meet the adequacy standards as required under the Police Services Act in order to carry out these very sensitive and oftentimes difficult investigations. Next slide, please. Our Victim Services Unit is one of only, as I said, a half dozen in-house police service victim services units in the province. We have two coordinators, Ms. Christy Lee and Alice Citron. Both of them offer ongoing support for victims of crime, and they do assist victims in connecting with community supports, following up on cases, and preparing victims for the court process. Recently, Alice Citron and our trauma dog Pixie were recognized provincially for their work by receiving a 2020 to 2021 Victim Services Award of Distinction from the province of Ontario. Next slide, please. As I said, they provide immediate supports to families involving criminal offenses, but they also supply immediate supports to families that have suffered a traumatic loss by connecting them with supports, as well as providing them with information to help them navigate the bureaucracy of paperwork when families are often having to deal with a death and are not sure of what to do or who to turn to. And that support is ongoing. It's not a once the report is done, it's an ongoing support, sometimes lasting months to help them through the issues. Next slide, please. Our emergency response team is highly experienced and well regarded by other police agencies, and they've often been called upon to assist other police services with high-risk warrants and takedowns, most recently as far away as Peel Region and Durham Region, not to mention assisting the county OPP with warrants locally. Next slide, please. Peterborough Police Service is able to handle major incident response 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have highly trained incident commanders, crisis negotiators, not to mention specialists in traffic, criminal investigations, and as we've previously talked about, our mobile crisis intervention team. We also have 2 licensed drone operators licensed by NAV Canada with 4 drones with varying capabilities. 2 of those drones are dedicated to assisting our emergency response team with clearing of residences. So rather than put an officer or a canine at risk, we can fly a drone into a residence and clear it to make sure that there's no armed and hiding suspects in there. We also have another drone that we use for traffic reconstruction work, and a 4th drone now that has infrared as well as thermal cameras, a loudspeaker and a spotlight on it that make it an excellent tool for searches. Our drones, one of which was deployed last year, was very beneficial in helping to locate 3 lost hikers, one of whom was injured on a trail down in Cavan Monaghan. While the hikers didn't specifically see the drone, they were able to hear it flying overhead and fortunately came out from underneath the forest canopy where they could be spotted by the drone and emergency response teams directed to assist them. Recently, as part of our 12-year contract with Harris Radio, we did a radio refresh and issued all of our officers as well as our police vehicles with new Harris Radio components, bringing them more up to date. Next slide, please. Now, we do understand that outside of COVID-19 times, there were ongoing community events that officers were able to attend. We had pre-planned responses to those, and we were able to dedicate a number of officers, including auxiliaries, to attend different events. COVID obviously has canceled a lot of those community events and changed the way that we've had to deal with people as well as engage with members of the various communities that we serve. However, it's still important for us to be proactive, and that's what our members have tried to do. Obviously, Zoom meetings, team meetings, things like that have allowed us to continue to be proactive and engage with the community, although a lot of the face-to-face activity that we once had for community involvement has unfortunately, much like council has found, has been shelved for the time being. But we are still doing our best to engage using the technology that we have to assist members of the community. Next slide, please. Now, as I said, we do have a number of different units that assist us in our day-to-day activities. Obviously, our command and control is based in Peterborough. We do have 24/7 supervision every day of the year through the officer in charge and our patrol sergeants, as well as the communications supervisor. We are fully compliant with the adequacy and effectiveness standards in the Police Service Act and the regulations. We do have our own professional standards unit that follows up on citizen complaints, as well as our own internal complaints when we find members are not compliant with policies. And we do take effective action to address any concerns by the community about the services that were provided. Recently, we added an audit, risk, and policy development manager to our service staff. And that person is tasked with making sure that all of our policies and procedures are compliant with the adequacy and effectiveness regulations, and that we are properly, auditing everything that we do. If we have a policy, it's important that things that you have get checked, that they get done. So there's no point in having a policy that we aren't auditing on a regular basis. So that's that person's role. Our training is conducted on a regular basis, and we've had to adapt to a different training model because of COVID. Unfortunately, a lot of the in-person training that we would have been able to attend across the province has been put on hold because of COVID, but we have found ways of doing it. So our use of force training is conducted one-on-one now, as opposed to in the groups that it once was. And our use of force training is guided by previous incidents that we've encountered in order to ensure that our members have different tools and different learning abilities around those incidents so that they are not repeated or that there's lessons learned from those things. Next slide, please. As I said, we do provide policing in other areas. We are called upon outside of Peterborough to provide supports to other agencies. Our canine unit, Coburg, Kawartha Lakes, as well as Port Hope has been utilized down there, as well as our emergency response team in other areas. And through provincial agreements, we do have access to other services, such as underwater dive teams if we need it, helicopter, bomb disposal technicians. If need be, we can call in additional tactics and rescue units to support us, and there are other specialized response teams. And these are all through existing agreements that we have or have negotiated. At this point, I'll just recap that the contract that we currently have with Cavan Monaghan, as I said, it's one dedicated officer 24 hours a day, plus an additional dedicated officer for 12 hours a day. And we do provide additional responses as required. Quite a number of calls do require more than one officer to attend, such as a domestic. So during the time that there's only one dedicated Cavan officer working, we are providing an additional officer out of the city of Peterborough to back up that officer to make sure that our own policies are complied with and that the matter is dealt with safely. Next slide, please. At this point in time, I would like to turn it over to our finance manager, Ms. Tia Wynn, just to walk you through the costing proposal that we've come up with and have her explain it better.
Thank you, Chief. Next slide, please. Thank you for this opportunity. We are pleased to propose a cost-effective contract for your consideration. In this proposal contract, the fees to the township are listed on slide 22, 23, and 24 for your reference. Our billing model is based on the 13,140 hours of service provided by our dedicated officers assigned to the township. Cavan Monaghan is responsible for the direct incremental cost of 6.99 uniform FTEs, which is 6.32 FTEs, plus the cost of backfilling our officers, and 0.51 of one civilian FTE. Cavan Monaghan's share of supervisory estimated at 116 hours for sergeant is 0.05 and admin support costs are 0.025 or 2.5%. Please note our proposal does not include an allocation of salaries and benefits for the inspector and staff sergeant. Our proposal also includes an amount of the additional premium for liability insurance related to the contracted service provided to the township and incremental costs associated with 2 additional vehicles and technical equipment. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The annual fees will be adjusted as follows. For the human resources component listed under section 1, which is on slide 22, and section 4, the annual percentage compensation increase for the uniform and civilian members of the police service attributed to the services provided to Cavan Monaghan. For other direct operating costs, the increase approved in the budget. If the annual increase cannot be determined as of beginning of the year of contracted service, The monthly advance payment will be based on the previous year's cost, and an adjustment shall be made when the information is known. In the event of any unforeseen changes that are beyond the control of city, the township will be financially responsible for the additional costs. The timing of such payment will be discussed when applicable. I would also like to touch on slide 26, reconciling costs. In the event overtime costs incurred by the police service for the contracted services provided to Calvin Monaghan exceeds $20,000 in the proposal, the township would be responsible for the overtime salary and benefit costs no later than March 31 of the following year. In the event a special service is required, the township will be billed for the cost of the special service provided to the township. In summary, our current proposal of the total cost on slide 24 is based on Calvin Monaghan's current needs and can be adjusted as we customize your services. If the township wishes to enter into an agreement with the city, Calvin Monaghan will benefit the following: a seamless transition on October 1st, 2021. The township will not need to incur expenses associated with having a police service board. Cost saving, no facility is required. Economies of scale due to cost sharing combined with no operating expenses for having its own police service force. Last and not least, our billing model is an hours-based contract for dedicated services, which eliminate the uncertainty of the many variables associated with future growth and increasing costs for service. His Worship and council members can eliminate the unknown to be fiscally responsible throughout the entire contract with the police service to the end of December 2026. Thank you for your time and attention.
Very good. Thank you, Chief Gilbert. Is there more, or was that it?
If we could just go back to slide 25.
Thank you. Okay.
So it's always been extremely important to us that the lines of communication have been open with Calvin Monaghan and its residents. And as such, as you know, that there's been several ways in which we've been reporting back to Township Council and for Council to stay connected to the service. We've always provided quarterly reports.
If I can interrupt, Chief Gilbert, just to Madam Clerk, I believe Chief Gilbert's referring to page 25 of his presentation, which is page 28 of our agenda. There you go. Sorry, Chief, go ahead.
No problem. So as I was saying, we provide quarterly reports on all of our activities to Calvin Monaghan Council. There's always been an invitation extended to attend police board meetings. And I know, Your Worship, you've done that several times. Although with COVID, it's been virtually. All of our board minutes and agendas are always sent to Calvin Council for their inspection, so they know what's going on during our board meetings. And as you know, you have direct access to our Inspector of Operations when there's been community concerns or complaints. Plus, we have dedicated email addresses in order for us to be contacted regarding specific issues like traffic complaints. We could go to slide 27, please. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we were suggesting the term of the contract being 5 years and 3 months.
Page 30, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, very good.
The 3 months obviously takes us from October 1st to the end of the year. And what we're trying to do is get the contract in line with the Peterborough Police Service fiscal budget cycle, which is a calendar year, January 1 to December 31st. So that helps us in that regard. It helps us with our budgeting exercises. The second reason would be that with municipal elections occurring in 2024, it moves any renewal process outside of the lame duck periods that occur before and after a municipal election. Third reason would be it provides for long-term cost stability for Cavan Monaghan. Fourth, with the requested requirement to confirm a renewal of the contract or Cavan Monaghan's intention not to renew or extend at least 1 year prior to the expiry date. So if we went with the December 31st, 2026 as the end of the contract, what we were suggesting is that by December 31st, 2025, either notice from Cavan of an intention to renew or not to renew the contract with us, which would allow us to properly staff for 2027 and to properly budget for 2027. Because as you know, our budget exercise starts roughly about March for the following year. And our estimates to council need to be in around June or July. Tia can better confirm what's going on with that. But we do have a budgeting process and it allows us to better plan for it. And it would also allow Cavan to better plan for their budget process. And as I said, that 1 year notification also gives us better notification in order to properly staff and right size the service. Should we not be going ahead with the renewal, then based on our current staffing, we would be considered over strength and we would need to be getting our numbers back down to right size us based on the areas that we'd be delivering policing services to. Next slide, please. And, you know, it goes without saying that why go with Peterborough Police? Well, Cavan wants dedicated officers and we're quite prepared to provide that. We do have a community presence. There's a number of award-winning community services programs that we provide. We do have a very quick response time to calls for service based on the dedicated officers as well as the other supports that we're able to bring into the community to assist. We are economical, we're efficient, and I believe we're very effective in what we do. Next slide. Again, just thank you for the opportunity to present our policing proposal. We certainly have enjoyed being a part of the Cavan Monaghan community for the past 6 years, and we look forward to doing so for many more years to come. The final 2 slides that you'll see are just some of the community response feedback that we've received lately from residents of Cavan Monaghan on the policing services that have been provided. And I do also want to point out that 2 of the photos in the presentation of Cavan Monaghan actually were taken by one of our drones with permission of NAV Canada and a proper flight plan being filed. So just want to preface that. So subject any questions that you may have of myself or any of the staff that we have on the call, that's our proposal. And certainly we're more than happy to continue to work with Cavan Monaghan to craft a contract that they can be happy with. I know I brought up a couple of different dates and suggested timelines. And, you know, obviously the term of the contract is something that would need to be discussed further, but those are my reasons for outlining, 1, the length of the contract, as well as 1 or 2 of the conditions that we'd be asking for. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Any questions from members of council? Who wants to start? Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation. That was really great. I do have a question for, I believe, Ms. Wynn, who put the costing together, and that was, she went through a bunch of different variables associated with the out years. I don't know whether we can get that in writing or in an email or something, so we can kind of help us work with our costing models for future years. And then the other thing she did mention was that there are certain elements that basically are unpredictable, and that cost would be passed straight on through. And maybe we could get a little bit better explanation of that, because it kind of sounds like a sweep clause to me. which makes me a little bit nervous.
Chief Gilbert,
I'll default to Ms. Wynn on
Ms.
that.
Wynn,
Through you, Chair. So I believe that because our billing model is officially an hours-based contract, so if we consistently, based on your usage today of 13,140 hours of service, the costing will be consistent from year to year, except for the adjustment that mentioned because of collective agreements and the increase of inflation. But other than that, you can eliminate the uncertainty of the increase based on future growth of the number of households and increasing costs for service.
Councillor Huntley, did that answer your question?
I'm not entirely sure. I guess it opened up two different things. One is I believe your pricing model is based on number of hours, but I don't believe we're actually billed on number of hours. So I think that's kind of a strange statement. But secondly, you did previously say that anything that changed outside of the cost of inflation would be passed straight on through. And that's what I was looking for an example of. And so that's kind of where I felt it was a little open-ended. I get that an hour is still an hour. You know, the rate will change per hour as the years go on, but it's the things outside of the hourly cost that you referred to that might be open-ended.
I think we got Deputy Chief with a lifeline here. You're going to provide an update. Go ahead, Deputy Chief.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Huntley. You're talking about two separate things, as you said. The one we're talking about that Ms. Nguyen was mentioning was if legislation changed, for instance, that we needed new tasers starting a year and a half from now after we're into a 5-year contract, and we had to make that change immediately, then it would slightly change the cost for the equipment because that's something we have no control over, that we couldn't get away from. So that's that piece of it. And then I'll turn it back over to Tia to explain the rest.
But thank you for that example.
Yes,
That
on
makes
the
more
same
sense.
line with, if you're looking at slide 24 under section 5 for other. So officer 5.1, officer equipment, 5.2, CAD mapping, as well as, if you look also, section 3 for fleet. The cost of these items are not under our control. So the annual fee will be adjusted for the increase based on the cost of the previous year.
Councillor Huntley?
Well, I think the chief was throwing in a hand there first, but I don't know. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chief Gilbert.
I was just going to add to what the deputy was saying, that the adequacy and effective regulations of the Police Service Act require certain things of police agencies, one of which is they specify what type of vehicles we're allowed to use for patrol or for emergency response. And as both the deputy and Ms. Wynn have said, if there's a change in legislation that requires us to, say we can't buy Dodge Chargers anymore, or we have to go to a hybrid vehicle, there might be a slight change in cost there. And that's a what if. It's not a guarantee, but it's more of we need to have everybody's eyes open that there is the potential down the road for something rather than go into it blindly. And the likelihood of it happening is slim to none, but I think that out of the abundance of caution, everybody just needs to be aware that government regulations could change how we have to do policing or what equipment that we might have to get, and that could be the only impact in that area.
Okay, so
Go ahead,
then
Councillor Huntley.
to follow up on that question, then to I guess the Chief. So that gives me a little bit more reassurance. What I was afraid of was something that I believe your budget has to pass through the city of Peterborough. And if for whatever reason they decided to lump it all over to us, that we have a protection in that sense. But you're talking about more provincially regulated things that you have to accommodate versus, other budget squabbles, which gives me some reassurance. But okay, I'll hold my next question. Somebody else can go ahead.
Very good. I think to summarize it up, I was caught by that one statement as well, Councillor Huntley, with which regards was outside of that, then we'd have a portion of what those increases were. And the first thing that came to my mind was all of the discussion with a new policing headquarters in the city of Peterborough. I wanted to ensure that we weren't dragged into that conversation of a capital cost that's outside of human resources, obviously. Any other questions from other members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Just a question with regards to, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was very clear and very concise, and appreciate the comparison to the existing model. One of the questions I had was, in the presentation, there was a discussion about, instances where, more officers may be required in the municipality. My question is more about the opposite circumstance, whereas we might be in that period where there's only one officer within that 24-hour shift present in the municipality. But let's just use the example that you mentioned as well with the anti-lockdown protests and our officer being called in to support the policing efforts with that sort of incident. Maybe two-part question then, I guess, is what's the process, or is there some sort of information or acknowledgement to either staff or the head of council for when those situations might occur? And subsequently, is there some sort of, I don't know if it's a tracking or cost recognition of, the diminishment of that service from the hours provided to be, maybe potentially go against overtime costs that or overruns in that, financial contribution? I'm just looking for a little clarity on that element.
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Through you, Your Worship. The way it currently works, there's language in the contract that in an emergent circumstance allows us to recall the cabin officer in an emergency. And, such as we'll say, hypothetically, a plane crash where we need additional resources. And what that does is it allows us to have boots on the ground immediately to deal with that issue while we're bringing people in on call out. That's where we're phoning somebody at home and ordering them back to work to come in and fill in. To my knowledge, we have not utilized the cabin officer in that way at all. Now, Inspector Lyons, he keeps track of all uses of cabin personnel, and he does provide a report to council about how we're deploying our people in cabin Monaghan. I'd ask John to jump in a moment just to explain that, but the reporting mechanism is that Inspector Lyons would be detailing the results of that usage of the officer back to cabin. That being said, there are often times where we're providing additional officers into cabin, as I said, outside of the two officers that are working. So you have one dedicated officer working in that 24-hour period, and they require a backup for a domestic. We aren't and have not been billing cabin for the usage of additional officers when we have to deploy them. So there's been a number of times that we've had additional resources down in cabin, and that hasn't factored into it. And we're more than happy to show you the numbers and the usage of officers there. And quite honestly, I think it's been beneficial to cabin because it hasn't been a huge cost, if at all. But I'll ask Inspector Lyons to weigh in on this point as to how he's been tracking it and the reports that he's been doing back to council relative to the cabin officer and if they've ever been recalled.
Very good. So over to Inspector Lyons, and then I've got Deputy Chief Farquharson after that. Go ahead, Inspector Lyons.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Your Worship. So essentially what I do is I record and keep track of any times that officers specifically assigned to cabin Monaghan would be utilized for any calls outside of cabin Monaghan. And what I found as I look back over a year, and the majority of times that the cabin officer is utilized is at the very, very beginning of shift, prior to them actually arriving in cabin, or at the very, very end of shift when they're actually have left cabin and are on their way back into the city, and they don't quite break the seal from cabin to Peterborough before dispatch says, oh, on your way into the station, would you mind stopping by and dealing with? The occasions that the cabin Monaghan officers ever brought into the city, as the chief prefaced, would be those emergent situations where we have, you know, I would suggest something catastrophic happening where we just need to be resource heavy at that very beginning. There will never be an opportunity where, you know, I'm careful to preface that, but where we would ever leave cabin Monaghan without. At the very least, it would be for that time period to get the, you know, the boots on the ground to deal with a situation that's occurring here. But that officer would then return back out to cabin Monaghan. And very often we do have calls that are happening within the city where we do have to call out our detectives or our K9. We have, you know, it could be a car chase, and we don't even bother looking toward that cabin Monaghan officer. Again, the preface of the whole model is to keep those officers that they're dedicated to in their place. And that applies to Lakefield and to cabin Monaghan. And again, it's under those extreme circumstances where we would bring an officer out of their area. And again, it would not be for an exorbitant amount of time. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Graham.
Very good, thank you. And Deputy Chief Farquharson, I did see you. There you are. Okay, go ahead. Oh.
Am I unmuted? Yeah, sorry. Okay, and just take you back 5.5 years ago, and my timing's off, when we had the original discussion, just the spirit and intent, we did discuss this at the table at the time, and the spirit and intent was, as the inspector and chief alluded to, a life and death emergency. For us to be calling somebody back in. And as the chief pointed out, and the inspector, many more times they're going out to assist. And Councillor Graham, Deputy Mayor, it's just to answer your question, we wouldn't be calling them in to assist with a protest. That wouldn't be a life and death. And the inspector will notify you in writing. And I'm not sure he worked that timing out with you, how long after we called somebody in that we'd let you know.
And if I could just, through you, your worship, just advise on that. So an arrangement that was made with the previous clerk was a monthly basis if those changes were noted. I initially started sending a monthly report, but didn't have much more to report other than nothing happened. So, and, you know, in keeping with the quarterly reports, you know, so we basically said that if there was something happened whereby you should be notified, you will be notified. And if you're not receiving a report, then nothing's happened. You know, unless you want me to send you a nil report every month, or, I mean, that's obviously entirely up to you, but it was to save you some reading because I'm sure you have enough.
Yeah, we're all about efficiency, so we're okay just receiving the reports when we need to know on a need-to-know basis. That was good. And speaking back to the relationship that we've had, I can think of two specific examples working in both ways. One was an incident that started in the city of Peterborough, and the traffic pursuit ended up in the township of cabin Monaghan, of which obviously it would have been the same officer that followed. And I can also think of one serious one that started in Millbrook and ended up in the city of Peterborough, which again would have drawn the resources out. So one of the benefits, obviously, of the service and how it manages is there's not that political boundary, and you cross lines whenever it's necessary. So I think that was good. And yeah, please keep us informed when on a need to know basis. That works for us, and hopefully that works for you as well. Other questions from members of council? I've got a couple, but I'll hold off and await, or okay, maybe I'll jump in. A couple questions. Number one, with regards to the human resources costs, and I understand that, and they're subject to obviously increases as it relates back to union contracts, etc. When is the next union contract up for renewal?
I can jump in there, Your Worship.
Okay, go ahead, Chief.
So we are currently in negotiations. We had a 1-year contract with the Peterborough Police Association that expired December 31st of 2020. The board and the association are currently in negotiations. The senior officers organization did agree to a multi-year deal, and the board and the Peterborough Police Association are currently working on a new contract. So other than to say that they're in negotiations, I can't say much more than that about what's going on, but they are working on it.
Okay. Next question, just for clarification, back to the question on discussion as our budget is going to relate to the city budget. I just want to be clear, if there's impacts on the city budget, and I mean obviously outside of contract negotiations, inflation, I'm not referring to that component, but if there's significant increases on the city budget side as it relates back to the policing, is there an impact on the Cavan Monaghan policing budget?
My understanding.
Okay, go ahead, Chief.
I was going to say my understanding to that, and Tia can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the contract is the contract. So what we're taking in revenue on that contract factors into our budget, and the rest of our budget with the city is not dependent on that.
Very good. Okay.
Confusing the issue there, but Tia can jump in and correct me.
And she was nodding the whole time. I like that answer, but go ahead if you wish.
Through you, Chair, no, that's correct. No impact whatsoever with any increase or any decrease from the city to our budget and to our contracted agreement. Very
good. Just a question as it relates back to the timelines. And I know we've had this conversation before relative to the length of the term. The issue with the 5-year, and then we'd certainly open for discussion, is that in fact, it does actually fall right in the middle of the lame duck. The 2026 is the election year. So that in itself may be problematic. And I'm not suggesting it needs to be necessarily shorter, but maybe to consider a 4-year or a 6-year, because literally the election is in 2026, and that's right smack dab in the middle. And we don't want to be politicizing our policing contract. And as we know, silly season can get out of hand sometimes. So just for consideration, Chief.
My understanding, Your Worship, is that the election is October of 2026.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why we were looking at the end of 2025 for that decision being made to renew or not renew with us. It would give Cavan Monaghan the ability to, if they don't want to go with us, to get a costing from the OPP or Durham or whoever, some months prior to the end of 2025. And that, I believe, takes us outside of that lame duck period, does it not? If
that's perfect. That's a good answer. Excellent. That completely eliminates it as long as it's up to there. Excellent. I was looking at the end date, but yeah, if you've already made the decision a year prior, then we're fine. That's excellent. Good. Another question would be, at this point, because I know it's a little bit different between so our council, the city council, and then the police is sort of stuck in the middle. What is the process from this point forward as it relates to approvals, negotiation, changes? Is this between our council and city council? This is us to you, to the city council and back? How does that work?
My understanding is that we could work together, Your Worship, to craft the language for a contract in conjunction with our police services board. Obviously, they have oversight of our activities down in Cavan, although it's under contract. Our board probably should be involved. I would say strongly they should be involved. We could craft the language that's appropriate to us, the city, and the board, and yourself. The next council meeting in Peterborough, I understand, is June 7th. So if we were looking to get it on a council meeting for Peterborough City Council to approve anything, it would either be June 7th or we'd have to wait until sometime in July for the next council meeting. And unfortunately, I'm not sure of the date in July. And then they would have to just approve the contract.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment rather than a question. This sort of, we're well along the way, and I just wanted to thank all of the individuals on this call and everyone representing Peterborough Policing. There was some discussion that our willingness as a council to explore our options with regards to considerations of an alternative police provision of the service, like being through the OPP. I just want to make the statement from council that should have in no way ever been taken by any member of Peterborough Police Services as a complete dissatisfaction or any level of dissatisfaction with the professionalism and quality of the service that we've been receiving as a municipality. I know there was some comments in the media that might have been sort of the byproduct of this. I can assure you that every member of council, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I believe I'm confidently in doing so, that we need to explore our options to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers that we represent. And seeking multiple bids is an essential nature of doing that work. And at no point, I really wanted to say thank you, especially for the professionalism that, never to myself or to my knowledge, any member of council has ever received or made a comment from any member of the Peterborough Police that might be the cause for, our looking elsewhere or our considering elsewhere. And I think that's a testament to the quality of individuals, and we appreciate that respect, and because it should go both ways and definitely be reciprocated. So I just wanted to thank that professionalism and appreciate you coming to council today to fulfilling our obligations and giving us something very, very solid to consider and comprehensive to consider. So I just wanted to make that comment. Appreciate it again.
Yeah, and I must add to that, Deputy Mayor, that's very well articulated, and certainly the feeling of members of council of having been very pleased with how the contract has gone thus far prior to. And one of the benefits that I've found over the course of the contract is the very fulsome communications that takes place amongst all of us in communicating our concerns and our issues as it relates to our community. And those lines of communication have been fantastic. So it's great to know that we can articulate our conversations one-on-one and have fantastic, because if you were to try and rely on the local media, it's a complete disaster, and suggested that you may not even be here today. So I'm glad that all of us can appreciate open lines of communication, and I can't say enough to what Deputy Mayor Graham has just said. That clearly encapsulates, I know, certainly my feelings as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Worship, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Graham, for those words as well. And I just want to say that at no point in time has any member of our service ever thought that you were looking elsewhere for a costing because you were unsatisfied with the level of service delivery that we've been providing. Ourselves as a police agency, we also have to look at other ways of doing things to save money, to be proper financial stewards of the taxpayers' money, and it's quite understandable what you were doing. So there's no bad feelings about that at all, and there's never been anything negative said on the part of members of the Peterborough Police Service or our Police Services Board in relation to that. So thank you again for the opportunity to present.
Excellent. One final question, and sorry, I had skipped over it. There was the mention with regards to capital costs and the requirement for space. And I think the statement was that there was no need for space, but we currently provide space. So is there continued use of that space, or you literally don't need any space moving forward with this contract?
My understanding is an officer will use it every once in a while to do reports and come off the road and use the space.
Okay.
But we're also looking at other areas in Cavan Monaghan because of our space concerns, both in our headquarters, where we might be able to rent some office space in order to offload some of our people out of the building, just to alleviate the busting at the seams. So
excellent. Sounds like a good conversation for another day. I just wanted clarification. That provides more than enough for today. Excellent. Any other questions from members of council? I see Councillor Huntley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I did want to iterate what both the mayor and the deputy mayor has said about the professionalism of your people. It's fantastic. I guess the other piece of it is I love your optimism of us having you an answer back for the July meeting. But on the more serious note, like, how long is this proposal valid for? I don't think I came across the validity of it. Like, obviously, hopefully, it doesn't expire in 30 days because things don't move as quick as you may think it do.
Well, I'm the eternal optimist that I'd like to think that things could move quickly, but the reality of it is we're going to continue policing Cavan Monaghan to September 30th on the current contract. And I would expect that the our price would be valid until the end of the contract period.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well said, Chief. Thank you. Any other questions from members of council, or if there's any questions from members of staff? If none, then I would suggest that this proposal be forwarded on to our policing task force for consideration to bring back a recommendation from council. I see Deputy Mayor Graham, seconded by committee member Councillor Huntley. Very good. Excellent. Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
yes.
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you very much for taking the time to put together the proposal, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick break then before we delve into the rest of our agenda.
How quick is quick, Mayor?
Do we need a motion for this?
He's gone.
He left us. He ran away from home.
All right, so we're waiting on Councillor Huntley and Councillor Moore. If you can just let us know once you're back, because your video is off. Yep.
Yeah, I've
You're
been
back.
here.
Okay.
I've been here the whole time.
Okay, and there's Councillor Huntley. Fantastic. Oh, we're all ready to
Sorry,
go.
I was sitting here too.
Oh, no worries. Okay, and Madam Clerk, are we good to go?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so that was the end of number 7. So we will move right into our number 8, which is minutes. 8.1 minutes of the regular council meeting held May 3rd, 2021. Motion to adopt those minutes. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item from committees and boards are the minutes from Middle Valley Trails meeting April 26, 2021. Motion for those minutes. Deputy Mayor Graham. Councillor Moore, Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item is item 9.2, Millbrook BIA Board of Management meeting minutes, April 22nd, 2021. Motion for those minutes. Councillor Huntley and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes. Deputy
Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Moving into reports. Item 10.1, Report Planning 2021-20, 2636069 Ontario Inc., Glen Coons Site Plan Agreement. Ms. Ellis?
Mayor McFadden, members of council, planning report 2021-20 is before you today with the recommendation that bylaw number 2021-30 be approved to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the site plan agreement between 2636069 Ontario Inc. and the Corporation of the Township of Cavan Monaghan. This site plan agreement applies to the lands at 1754 Mount Pleasant Road that have been recently developed with a new industrial building and outside storage area. The site works still need to be completed. In the agreement, there is a requirement for $20,000 security to ensure that those site works get completed in accordance with the accepted plans. And the agreement has been circulated for review to the owner of the site and the developer of the site and to their consulting engineer. Also, the Director of Public Works for the township has reviewed the draft site plan agreement. Everybody's in agreement with the content, and so thereby the recommendation for you today is that you accept the agreement and we work on getting all parties to sign it and put this one to bed, except for the review of the site works.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Next item is 10.2, Report Planning 2021-21, Michael Davenport severance application B-10-21. Ms. Ellis?
Thank you, Mayor McFadden, members of council. Planning report 2021-21 is before you today with recommendations that read as follows. Firstly, that the Township of Cavan Monaghan support severance application B-10-21 because it conforms to the township's official plan. Secondly, that the completed municipal appraisal form be forwarded to Peterborough County Land Division Department. Thirdly, that the payment of $1,200 cash in lieu of parkland to the township be applied as a condition of approval of application B-10-21. And finally, that the Township of Cavan Monaghan provide confirmation to the applicant and Peterborough County Land Division that it will release or delete the restrictive covenant from title to allow any proposed severance to be finalized. Patty, if you could roll down to the map, I will, I know that this application is a little bit complicated. So if you can see the map there, so the proposed retained lot is outlined in green. The retained will be, sorry, the severed lot is outlined in red. The retained lot is outlined in green. The both colors together represent the lot 13 of the plan of subdivision that was recently developed. So what's going to happen, we will create one new building lot. So from this total lot 13, we will have a severed and retained. Both of those lots will be used for a single detached residence. They will be serviced by private well and septic. Both lots meet the minimum lot area and lot frontage requirements for a lot in the Hamlet residential zone. Peterborough County, through the preliminary severance inquiry process, has confirmed that an entrance to each of the lots will be available from the county road. There is an existing right-of-way that straddles the line between lot 13 and block 14. That right-of-way provides access to 1039 Mount Pleasant Road, which is the little cutout in block 14. That right-of-way is maintained regardless of what happens with the severance applications. So there will always be access to 1039 Mount Pleasant Road via that right-of-way, unless something changes in the future to give them permanent access to Mount Pleasant Road. But just to be clear for you that right-of-way is being maintained. As part of the subdivision process, there was a restrictive covenant put in the subdivision agreement that talked about block 14 being deeded to 1039 Mount Pleasant Road. There was a 2-year time frame in the agreement for the owners of block 14 and the owners of 1039 Mount Pleasant Road to come to an agreement. There has been no agreement reached. There has been some effort, but there is no agreement in place at this moment in time. The township solicitor has confirmed to staff that the 2-year time frame has elapsed, and we can't really force that agreement. We cannot ask for information to confirm that there has been a serious effort made to reach an agreement. So his recommendation, or not a recommendation, but the information is that the owners of the property have the right to make the application for a severance application. It's going through an approved planning process. But if council chooses to support the application, we will have to provide confirmation that we are prepared to release the restrictive covenant from title.
Okay. Questions from members of council? Maybe just the obvious one. Why did we impose the covenant in the first place if we have no ability to enforce it?
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council, I think at the time when the subdivision was done, we were trying to provide a permanent access to 1039 Mount Pleasant Road. It was kind of a remnant parcel with that deeded right-of-way, and we were trying to facilitate a more permanent access. And the owner of when the subdivision was developed, it had a previous owner, and I think there was an agreement, a quasi-agreement between the owner of 1039 and the previous owner of the subdivision lands, that transaction would occur. So that was carried forward with the new owners of the subdivision. And since that time when an agreement was not reached, then they are now moving forward with this proposed lot configuration.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
yes,
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next report, which is the extension of the previous report, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden. To members of council, Planning Report 2021-22 is before you today with the recommendations that the Township of Cavan-Monaghan support severance application B-11-21 because it conforms to the township's official plan. Secondly, that the severed parcel be merged on title with the severed parcel in application B-10-12. Thirdly, that the completed municipal appraisal form be forwarded to the Peterborough County Land Division Department. And lastly, that the Township of Cavan-Monaghan provide confirmation to the applicant in Peterborough County Land Division that it will delete the restrictive covenant from title to allow any approved severance to be finalized. Again, Patty, if you could flip down to the map at the end of the word part of the report, I can
So with this map, you can see that the lot addition lands are colored in red and are denoted with the label sever. So those lands will be added to lot 13. This severance, or the lot addition, will mean that the right-of-way for 1039 Mount Pleasant Road will be all located on one property. The retained portion, which you can see colored in green, will be a lot for a single detached residence. Again, it meets the minimum lot area and lot frontage requirements for a lot in the Hamlet residential zone. The development will be serviced by private well and septic systems.
Very good. Questions from members of council? It's a little confusing because we had to break it out as two separate reports, so it looks like a pretty small and weird looking severance, but it joins to the one that we just processed in the last report. No further questions then. A motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Councillor Belch and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item, 10.4, report planning 2021-23, Cham Shan Temple Site Plan Agreement Amendment. Ms. Ellis?
Mayor McFadden, members of council, planning report 2021-23 is before you today with two recommendations. The first being that staff requests the township solicitor to prepare an amendment to the site plan agreement for the Cham Shan Temple to include the revised construction schedule for the internal services. And secondly, that the amending agreement, together with the associated bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the amending agreement, be returned to council for approval. This amending agreement is being precipitated by the fact that the road work to the county road, which is required to facilitate the construction of the internal services, is just happening. It's starting now and it will run into July. So that means that the internal service construction has been delayed. The new schedule, which has been reviewed by township staff and deemed to be acceptable, will push the ultimate completion out to the year 2026, which is longer than originally identified. So the agreement needs to be amended to reflect that change in schedule. So we will all have it, we will all agree that this is a schedule that the developers are now adhering to.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, motion then to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you very much, Ms. Ellis. Next report, Fire 2021-05, Fire Station Conceptual Design and Site Selection Report. Chief Belfour.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Oh, great. The recommendation today before Council is that Council approves the site selection for replacement of Fire Station 1 at 986 County Road 10 as recommended by the consultant, and that Council approves the conceptual drawing with the addition of the drive-through bay for paramedics to ensure that it meets the needs of the future of both paramedics and fire services, and that a council approves the transfer of an upset limit of $57,900 from the fire department's emergency equipment reserve to cover the actual costs in excess of the approved budget for fire station change of scope in the design. If there's any surplus funds in the fire department's capital at the end of the year, the surplus will be used as a priority to reduce and or not require the transfer from the fire department's emergency equipment reserve.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Thanks for the report, Chief. Obviously this has been a long time coming, and it's been a ton of work from both staff, but also yourself. So thank you for that hard work. A couple questions. I'll start with a couple simpler ones. One being with regards to the redesign of the incorporation of this additional bay or drive-through bay, I'm not, whatever vernacular is the appropriate one. Is there going to be the drawings or whatnot? Is there going to be an opportunity, obviously, assuming we're moving forward today, for that to come back before council for, you know, just sort of feedback, or just so that we're aware of what the addition will be or the redesign would look like?
So if that's, if council wishes, when the financing report comes back, when we get the further down the road, we can bring that additional drawing back for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you. And then my other
Excellent.
more
So let us,
complicated-
so one second,
oh, yep.
Deputy Mayor. I see Tyler is available. Tyler, do you want to go ahead with your presentation?
Thank you, Your Worship. Our report supports the Chief's report, so I'm available as per his request to answer any questions as council wishes.
Sorry, but was there a report that you're going to be making or no? Wasn't there a presentation? No.
It's an attachment to the Chief's report.
Okay, Ms. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Tyler, if you can please walk through your report with council.
Sure. Thank you. So through you, Your Worship, sorry for any confusion. As part of our services to the township, we assisted staff with a site selection study. It's appended to the Chief's report dated April 14th. As part of that study, we had 4 sites that were included for review, and those are listed in the report. Working through the specifics of different metrics. So metrics were identified based on our experience in undertaking studies of this type and the nature. We looked at each of those sites with respect to a number of different metrics, and those are included as table 1 to the report. Included also with the report, as was just mentioned, was a conceptual building, a layout that incorporates not only fire services, but also the proposed paramedic service from the city and the county, and those spaces and the needs relevant to both occupants were included in the concept. There are site specific sheets, SP01 through SP04, which evaluate graphically each of the 4 sites that were considered for the study, provide some visual context. And as I mentioned, in table 1 is the evaluation matrix, where select metrics were identified for review, an associated description, and then a subsequent ranking was applied based on information that was available from past studies or the township's information or ongoing studies and work with respect to ongoing development. At the conclusion of the study, it is Greenview's recommendation based on information available and the outcome that the site at 986 County Road 10, which is also known as the Community Center site, with an entrance off Wallace Line, be used for the municipality's new fire station number 1.
Okay, very good. Question for Ms. Hurley. We've recently received funding as it relates to the old arena and as it relates to the utilization. I believe there's an RFP going out for the usage of the lands that had been committed to the CMCC. So what's the timeline on the public consultation for what those lands are going to be used for? Because clearly if a fire hall is to be considered as part of those lands, it's going to have to become part of that entire public consultation, which we've got that RFP going out. What sort of delay would we have in place prior to any fire hall being considered on that location?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, actually, we didn't go ahead and put this RFP out yet until we determine what the best suitable location for the fire hall. So we weren't going to go ahead with the RFP until we determine if one of these 4 locations are suitable or based on the recommendations before you and council's discussion, we're holding off on the RFP until that time.
Okay, very good. But I believe that we already have an outstanding council motion which discussed those lands and the future of those lands, and that there would be public consultation on that. That's an old motion. I believe that was back with our previous manager.
The motion that I am familiar with at the top of my head, I can definitely check that, is the motion that council for public consultation on the Millbrook Arena. There was also the RFP, the intent, even though it's not a motion, but the intent of the RFP for the remaining lands at the community center would also be the public process.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe Councillor Huntley's more in tune with this one, but I recall a group coming forward to do a pump park next to the CMCC, and they were sidelined until such time that we had public consultation on the use, because we had all these groups coming together that wanted to use those lands. And I believe we parked it until we'd done some public consultation on the best utilization of those lands. Ms. Hurley?
Yes, what I'm saying is I don't have a specific motion. What the direction from that was that we would carry out an RFP, and part of that RFP process would be that there be public consultation on the CMCC lands.
Perfect. Okay, excellent.
What I'm saying is a different motion. Yes.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. So at the end of the day, any discussion on this primary location is going to be queued up behind a public process that hasn't started yet. We have no RFP in place. So I think that would need to be factored into the longevity of this, that we may not even get a shovel in the ground on the primary location. That would be my concern. Deputy Mayor Graham, you had another question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So with regards to the report then, while I believe Tyler's here, just a question with regards to in the matrix, I believe it's on page 4 of 6 within there, but I think it's page 154 in the agenda. Are we all there? I think we're there. It's upside. It's a bit hard to orientate yourself to read, but bear with me. Sorry, I was incorrect in my page. It was on 4 of 6. Yeah, sorry, that's correct. So with regards to my preference, I'll be upfront. So my preference for the location is not the 986, it is the 988 location. Let's just refer to it henceforward as the township lands associated. And I've got a few questions, one of which for yourself, Tyler, and then a few for staff as well, all pertaining to that. So I'm just laying my cards on the table so we understand. In the matrices on this page, one of the ones that I was curious about the understanding some of the variability or the scoring was with regards to the site comparisons in the third row of this vertically displayed sheet. There's a comment that discusses, are there existing buildings likely to cause proximity issues? And there we regard it as no when it pertains to 986 for the County Road 10, which would be the, let's just call it the arena CMCC lands, but yes for the 988 township property. What facility or building is the reason or the justification between the yes being at the County Road 10 property or the township property versus the no at the CMC property?
Through you, your worship, to answer the question, with respect to the municipal office property at 988 County Road 10, based on setbacks and preliminary grading concepts that were developed initially through this study, it's anticipated that there will be a conflict of some sort with respect to the existing municipal office on its north side. The extent of which is yet to be determined if that site is to be studied further. But the parking area and the building, the north side of the municipal office building, as a potential conflict or proximity issue with the development of the northern side of that site. Regarding the 986 County Road 10 or the CMCC site with frontage on DeFaullis Line, currently there are no structures or buildings that are of a concern specifically on that site in that specific location that's been proposed.
So the community center doesn't qualify? There's no conflict or perceived conflict with the location of that facility?
Through you, your worship, at this time, the proximity is not an issue with the existing community center on the 986 County Road 10 site.
Okay, fair enough. So then my other question, if I can keep going, Mayor, sorry,
Go ahead.
I don't have you on my screen. So with regards to, it's for Mr. Hancock, with regards to, I mean, everyone who's from here is familiar with the grading circumstances behind that hill. I knew I was scolded several times in recess for hiding out behind that hill when it was still the public school. So it's quite a grade. And it is
Just to clarify, you weren't
susceptible
talking
to-
about the council, you weren't talking about council recess, you're talking school days.
Correct. Yeah. Primary school recess. Correct. So it is quite a steep grade, and obviously that would need to be a factor in consideration. What I'm looking for from Mr. Hancock would be, what would be hypothetically we be looking at from both a time constraint to do excavation works and a potential cost for the excavation works that would be required in order to utilize that location in comparison to the property at the town or the CMCC lands.
Through Mr. Mayor to Deputy Mayor Graham, first of all, I think the comment was from my part anyhow, that if the fire hall was to be accommodated north of the municipal office, I was originally thinking that you would require a retaining wall, and the retaining wall could be a combination of slope and retaining wall, because I believe our conversations to date was we don't really have a low and flat enough area to match into Street B and into County Road 10. The estimated cost of the wall, I think, is a little bit up in the air, in that if you look at a wall, we may want to consider some pedestrian access down to the lower, to the fire hall, and we're not, I don't think, totally sure that it couldn't be a combination of slope and wall, I guess is where I am. So I think that's a detail that Bill and I've talked about that you may have to come back to and work it into the cost. I don't consider the grading operation that significant on the site. I think the construction of the wall is your bigger capital item, and maybe Tyler could comment or on this, but the wall has to be put in place to substantially hold the parking lot at the side of our building. We have to make a determination that the graded area will accommodate the building that we're trying to make sure it fits there. So those are your issues, but we have to, that area where the fire hall has to be graded fairly close to Street B, which is about 6 meters lower than the existing parking lot at the office today, 6 to 7 meters. Does that sort of answer the question?
Not exactly. I'm looking for like a rough fiscal estimate as to the amount of time that it would take, and then obviously the cost potentially associated with it. I mean, obviously this is a potential site that I think is ranked second highest on the list of potentials. So, I mean, in reviewing and evaluating these sites, and maybe not a fulsome event, but I'm just looking from your personal expertise standpoint. If it's going to take a year to do, that's a year that we're lost and away from the construction of this very desperately needed, fire hall. So that's going to be a critical factor in evaluating and making a decision between sites. I mean, I share the mayor's concerns that my understanding all along had been that the CMCC lands were to provide the community with a recreation area to be centered, in amongst the new development, but for all of to really create sort of a recreation hub. And so I have great concerns in removing 3 to 4 acres of that property for, a more of an essential and a required development, but to be taken away from one to the other when we own municipal lands that are in proximity to, a service provision property right now. And I think that I also have concerns, not that they're informed by any sort of engineering background, but with regards to traffic implications just by adding another factor to that Fallis T intersection and County Road 10. So that's so I've gone off track a bit, but my original question was more of a timeliness and a specific estimated time horizon as the implications of that site, but also a potential fiscal understanding of what approximately we were looking
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor. Well, first of all, the issue of the property north of our office is tied to the construction of Street B through Tower Hill North subdivision. And right now we're working through draft plan conditions. I'm not sure that we have a firm commitment on time, but all indications are they're trying their best to have servicing start and be completed by this fall. Our position, or my position on it, was that we would have Street B completed throughout the subdivision out to County Road 10. That will give you provision for road access and for services. Those are needed for construction of any building on that site. But assuming that that timeline is reasonable, or it moves into 2022, those, we don't know where that draft plan is as of today. The issue of the wall is really a capital cost that would be included in the site building and site construction. And I don't see this being, if we're looking at a building that could be 3 million or 3.5 million, the wall construction is probably in the range of $100,000, and it's not substantial. It is a dollar amount, and I don't consider the grading a major issue. It's just, how do you accommodate the 6 meter or 7 meter differential drop between the parking lot at the rear of our building versus a flat area to build your fire hall on? The second part of the equation is, can we confirm or have some reasonable comfort level that Street B will be in place when we want to build the fire hall? So those, I think, are the issues, but that's where, and all the servicing for the site comes through Street B.
I got Ms. Hurley first, and then I've got Councillor Moore and Councillor Huntley. Go ahead, Ms. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one of the questions I think would be helpful is, Tyler, is maybe if you're speaking to the items or the maps, for council to look at each one of the maps. If you're speaking to a certain site, I think it's more beneficial if they can see the actual site that you're referencing. And that goes for Bill as well, as if you identify a certain, if council wants to look at a specific site. Right now we're talking about the north side. It might be beneficial for you to reference that site so that they can see what the dimensions are that you're speaking back regarding the setback in Street B. So for my spot, it looks like, Patty, if you could move to SP03 drawing, it might help council when they're looking at those specific sites. And the other second question that I had is to Mr. Hancock. Is Mr. Hancock, if we're talking about doing the earthworks or potential capital costs with a wall, you mentioned about Street B pertaining to two things. One is the road concern of when the road would be built. I'm thinking that there still could be options for discussion to get that road in prior to. The other part to that is, my understanding is they were talking originally about bringing the services from the municipal office over to the north site, and you're referencing bringing services from Street B in. It's two different items for connection. Can you clarify that item for servicing?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our Ms. Hurley. Number one, water is, of course, available at the municipal office, could be extended to the fire hall. It's a pressure system. The sanitary sewer is, of course, at the municipal office. If we were going to use that at the fire hall, we'd have to put in some form of pump system and pump it up the grade to our system at the municipal office. And stormwater management for the site, we were intending that this site drain ultimately to the future pond in the Tower Hill North subdivision. So generally the services would be available on Street B. We have some options with our municipal office, and we certainly could do something on the interim. I mean, it's all possible. It's just it's more practical and easier to do if we have the stubs put in off of the municipal services on future Street B.
Okay, Councillor Moore, and then I've got Councillor Huntley after that. Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
Through you, Chair. First off, I agree with Deputy Mayor Graham 100% that I think it should be on the north side of the our own municipal office. I don't believe we should be taking property away that was given to us for parkland. And I don't think it's safe, to be honest. The other thing is the road that we would need to build, could it not be built, even if we have to upfront the cost and the developer reimburse us later for the portion that wouldn't be ours, or like, so that we could get this into the start, like then they'll know where their road B is going to be. And we know where we need it to be. Can it all be all worked out so that it lines up at a later date properly with their development?
I think I'm not, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Moore. There's a couple of different situations you can look at for if the fire hall timing is ahead of the future Street B, then you can look at a temporary roadway off Street B that might be accommodated. What I was referring to, ultimately, you'll bring your what is referred to as the municipal systems, which is sanitary, storm and water up Street B. But in the short term, I mean, if this building was to proceed Street B, then you can certainly look at some interim stormwater management, storm drainage. You can look at certainly water from the municipal office. You can look at a temporary access road that ultimately would be at future Street B that would be replaced with Street B is built. And you could look at some pump system on the sanitary that could accommodate sewage in the short term. So it's all doable. It's just a case that if Street B was constructed, it would make it much more easier to, of course, fit the fire hall onto the site. But I mean, that there's nothing to stop the township from looking at alternative temporary measures or alternative measures until Street B is built.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, Councillor Moore, go ahead.
Sorry, I just feel strongly that we should be using property we already own and not taking away from parkland that was given to us very generously. And we have a community that's looking forward to using it. And like I said, I don't feel it's safe to have fire trucks coming out around where there's a community building already in use. Like for recreation. It just doesn't seem sensible to me.
I think you got a consensus on that one. Councillor Huntley?
Through you, Chair, I got a couple questions. The first one being the north side of the township office option. Why can't it just go out onto 10 and not, like, why are we so dependent on Street B? I mean, if I get the county's not handing out, accesses on a regular basis, but we're talking about the fire station. And I don't know whether the chief has an opinion on this, but to me, I'd rather be taxiing out of the hangar onto the runway than going all the way over all over the airport before I get out.
So through the mayor to Councillor Huntley, that is correct. And we've had discussions and got some dates. I did get a phone call back today from Mr. Sakota from the county in regards to one of the questions was it would be preferred to have it access out onto County Road 10 and return back on Street B. But there's some items that need to be reviewed before that determination can be made. And I guess if I can go back, I guess the project, between site 1 and site 2, staff was working on the premise of keeping the project moving ahead in a timely fashion in the path of least resistance, and the recommendation of the consultant and myself is site 1. And I appreciate the comments about the parkland and Councillor Moore's about going past a recreation center. However, the front entrance of the recreation center is off County Road 10 and the back entrance is off. So that issue, although it's an issue, I see it as a minor one. And going to site number 2 at the municipal office, there's a number of issues as the Director of Roads, Wayne, Mr. Hancock has indicated, and I appreciate that, Wayne. And those are costs that are going to add to the project. So there may be an opportunity in talking to Mr. Sakota about having it exit out onto 10, but that's going to require some discussion and times. And Tyler, I'm not sure if you can add if there's any additional costs from going to this site in regards to geotechnical or construction costs that may be foreseen on this site.
Through you, your worship, and to echo the chief's comments and the director of public works comments with respect to site preparation on the municipal office site. We believe grading, we would echo that the work itself to complete grading to meet a reasonable design, grading and lot design would be reasonably achievable at a reasonable cost. With respect to geotechnical requirements, primarily in the form of likely retaining walls and other such means, we would anticipate to be considerable. We don't have a specific cost or estimate for that at this time. It wasn't originally part of what we were reviewing. But as mentioned by the Director of Public Works, we are seeing a 7-meter difference in elevation from the existing parking lot down to what would be a proposed elevation for access or exit from Street B. And that's based on the preliminary design for the overall Tower Hill development. That's a significant difference in elevation, 6 to 7 meters, 20, 23, 24 feet in difference. And we would also, as noted by the Director of Public Works, we should be accommodating for pedestrian access, accessible pedestrian access to that building from the municipal office by those that would need that access, primarily staff and council. So it is a complex undertaking. I think all of us understand generally what the challenges are with respect to access onto County Road 10. Mr. Mayor, there was also the review in terms of a potential for a blind spot with the primary elevation, peak of elevation just being slightly north of the property. And there may be an issue with a blind site looking to the north in terms of safety and safe access for fire and emergency vehicles onto County Road 10. So there are a few elements there that still have to be resolved, but it is a challenging site.
You indicated that the grading would be a considerable cost. So if we're just throwing a number out there and the cost of the construction is $4 million, are we talking for grading 1%, 5%, 10%, 20%? Like what's a considerable amount?
In response to you, Mr. Mayor, we'd have to calculate some volumes. Initial estimates, we'd be likely looking at somewhere in the range of $7 to $8 a cubic meter. The calculation of volumes would be dependent on the orientation of the building. We've had some discussions in the preliminary review of this to reorient the building, possibly with frontage. So the long axis of the building being oriented north-south, as opposed to, as it's shown on SP03 in an east-west, where it was expected that the county would not permit an entrance onto County Road 10. So the orientation of the building will affect the magnitude of excavation. So with respect to retaining walls, which we would anticipate to be possibly an equal cost, based on experience of doing projects of a certain nature like this, we could see costs well over 100,000, as noted by the Director of Public Works, based on how the grading would actually, the grading design would actually be concluded. So
$100,000 on a $4 million project.
In response, I would suggest it would be with the actual provision and installation. I would say it would be closer to 300,000 to 400,000.
Okay, Mr. Hancock, do we have any ballpark on how much we spent on grading for the new community center? Considering at the time there was a lot of fill had to be brought in, it had to be all compacted and done, and we did that in the course of the year. Do we have a ballpark figure on what that was?
To you, Mr. Mayor, we actually had the grading. We had the developer do the grading on that one, so that was almost a freebie. Don't really have a number on that because he was doing the cut and fill for us.
Okay. I guess the concern, you've sort of heard it around the table, Chief, is I don't support it over at that other location at all. It was lands that were dedicated specifically for recreational purposes. There's nothing taken into consideration with the community needs as it relates to recreational services. And I can appreciate that because Chief, that's not your specialty. And it's also, Tyler, that's not yours either. But the recreational land is something that's very important to the community. And likewise, if we had lands dedicated for a fire hall and suddenly we were going to put a community center on it, I could understand your frustration and not wanting to put it there either. So once those lands are used up, you can't get them back. You've got a fire hall on pre-dedicated lands that were specifically for recreational use. So I want to hear about a plan to get it, from the sounds of it, north of the township office, because we can make it work in there. And a lot of these are logistics. We just approved potentially 4 new entrances on Mount Pleasant Road, right next to a fire hall in Mount Pleasant. So I recognize that they may have concerns, but clearly you can get over those concerns if we can willy-nilly hand out entrances to new lots right beside a fire hall. And that's literally what we just did earlier today. So I think there's an opportunity to work with the county, given that they want in on this as well with an EMS. We can schedule lights, we can assess safety. I mean, if you fire up those lights and shut everything down, I'd be hard pressed if you've got lights at that intersection and lights at Fallis, and they're all set to red. I'm not following where the safety part comes in unless you got people running lights. So I think if you've listened to council, that's where we're aiming to put it. And the longer we kick around the CMCC, I'm telling you straight up, I won't support it. And I don't know that you've got the appetite amongst the rest of council. So we can kick that one around even more, but I don't see that's where this one's going to go. And I'd really like to focus and get shovels in the ground and get this thing moving forward. And council's asking for a few things coming back relative to pricing, but we need some consistency and we need some numbers so we can move ahead with this project. But for myself, I'll speak on behalf of myself and let the rest of council speak on the other part. I don't want to hear any more about the CMC project over there. I won't support it. So I don't want to waste any more time on that effort at this point. But I'll let the rest of council speak if they have, if they want to provide some direction. And I see Councillor Huntley with his hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I guess I won't ask my second question as it pertained to the other property now.
I don't know. I could be out in an island, Deputy Mayor Graham. I might be out there by myself or with you, and I don't know whether I got a paddle. So go ahead, Councillor Huntley.
Well, my question about the CMCC lands is what percent of the vacant land is this proposing to take up? Like, is it 2%, 50%? That was kind of where I was trying to figure it out. It's hard to tell.
Tyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the total area was 10 acres ish, and we're looking at 3. Is that roughly correct?
Just to support the chief's response and through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd refer you to drawing SP02, and that would give a graphical representation of the proposal as it currently, the proposal for that specific site in terms of the building area, setbacks, adjacent to the on the west side of the cemetery.
So sorry, Chair. My issue with this one, and this is kind of where I was coming with the question, is it actually doesn't have the community center on it, and so it's very hard to see what is the open land on that picture compared to where the community center actually is. So my question was around the free land, not the 10 minus 3, because that community center is obviously taking up a good chunk of that 10 as well, right?
Ms. Hurley, is it safe to say that the community center is taking up half between the parking and the CMCC, that out of the 10, it's taking up 5? Again, I'm ballparking because to Councillor Huntley's point, we don't have a building on it, but I'm thinking that's probably a ballpark fair assessment, which would leave 5. And if this is taking 3, would leave about 2. But again, unless somebody's got a mathematical calculation for it.
Yeah, so it's taking up more than half of the available land that's left.
Ms. Hurley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The community center actually takes a 2.44 acres.
Oh.
Okay. Well,
that includes parking and everything? That's a parking and the playground, and all of the current footprint is 2 point something acres.
2.44 acres, sir. Just
Okay.
under 3 acres.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Through you, Ms. Hurley, can you just clarify, because there's also a portion of the recreational lands that are what I'll call the sort of decline hill between the township office and now, which is obviously not really much we can do beyond the exercise equipment that's already there with regards to the grade. Is that a part of that 2.4 acres for the community center, or is that in the remainder of the 10?
You know, I think we better park this one because I think we're all guessing. And if you just think of logistics behind it, we've got a 50,000 square foot CMCC, plus a spots for parking for 100 cars, plus a playground, plus the slanted hill takes up 2.43 acres. And the chief's asking for 3. So how big is this fire hall? 60,000 square feet, or we got parking for 100 vehicles? Because like logistically, this doesn't make sense.
It's got the other pad in it.
I don't know. I'm expecting an order for 27 fire trucks by the end of this.
Mr. Mayor, we've incorporated, the size of this fire hall is incorporated with all of council's asks. And the fire department's here today, and specifically me. We put forward a report. We brought in the consultant. They've given us their professional opinion. I've given you ours. Staff takes direction. If you're looking at site number 2, we're looking for a motion of council that this is the site that you're looking at. You're recognizing the additional times and expenses that may come with this project, and we can move forward.
Very good. Any other questions? Ms. Hurley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to support that, keep in mind the four properties that are before council today were discussed. Those were the 4 properties that the chief was asked to speak with Greenview on and come up with potential plans on each one of those properties. So if it is council's wish, I mean, we believe we've carried out a staff view. We've carried out exactly what we were directed to do, to come up with a plan for a fire hall on each one of those properties. And that's why we're here today, to discuss the pros and cons of each of those properties. And if you are strong enough that you believe that number 2, which is the lands for north of the municipal office, is where council wishes to go, we're fine with that. But we did bring the reports for you for discussion, and that's what we're here to do today.
Very good. You can tell this is certainly a project that council has been very committed to and trying to move forward. And I'm cognizant of timelines and necessary commitments in order to move ahead before it becomes more or less as we deem election issues. And so I don't want to waste time at this point and recognize that we brought forward all the recommendations. I'm trying to funnel council towards something that we can move ahead with. And I'm not supportive of the other one. And if council, from what I hear, is not supportive of it, I don't want to spend any more time on it. But I think you've got members of council asking really important questions relative to the overall implications of putting the fire hall to the north of the township office. And I think some of those questions we're not able to answer today. And I'm cognizant from 2 points. Number one, we have to be responsible for the dollars and cents that are spent, but at the same time, we're also trying to push this project forward. So the discussion on Road B, which is out of our control, and how to service it and access to the county road, I think, I don't know what we can approve today to get things moving forward if we're not going to have answers to those. And I think if that's the direction council wants to go, we really need some solid answers on those. Access to the county road, access. Do we need Road B? Can we service it from the township office? What's the cost of the retaining wall? What's the cost of all the land works? What's the timeline on all the land works getting done? So that's where I'm coming from. And I hope I'm helpful. I'm not trying to hold up the process. I'm as committed as everybody else to try and get this done. Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor, just to the chief, I just want to, Chief, this is going to be, I understand that there's, that it sounds as though we're leaning in a direction that wasn't the recommendation. But I wanted to thank you for all the effort that you've done in this. I think from a fire perspective, all of what was asked for and all of what that was under consideration has been provided from your standpoint. And I want to just thank you for doing that hard work, because I'm sure it's as big a priority I can assure you, it's as a bigger priority for council as it is for you. And we want to get this done ASAP. Unfortunately, I feel as though there's some lacking. I would love to be able to make the decision between the two. Unfortunately, I feel as though I tried to highlight those conversations to other elements and other members of staff, but I don't have that answers that I was looking for from a time implications or cost implications. I hear some vagaries with regards to potential costs and estimations, but we're making, everyone wants to move ahead with the $4 million fire or whatever number it comes out to be. But where we put it is a critical part of that consideration that, I understand some of the rationale, but I can't believe there's not more background work in reviewing, non-fire related elements of both of these two locations. And I'm quite frustrated by it because I had anticipated getting a bit more in the way of answers today, but that doesn't seem like a possibility. So I'm not even sure what, with regards to direction we can move forward. If we're going to fully eliminate the CMC location, that seems to be an impossibility because of my lack of understanding with the actual timeline, or even an estimation of an actual timeline of the implications of that decision, or the fiscal actual implications of that decision. So I don't know how we're going to move forward, but I think it would be pretty premature to fully eliminate the secondary as an option, because to me, all of the work has been done on that primary option at the CMCC lands. I mean, it's very straightforward, and I understand and appreciate that. And there is an exponential component to the building process that is a valuable consideration. But with not having enough evidence on the option or the second most feasible option in the consultant's report, I can't compromise without the justification to do it. And so I don't want you to take that personally, because I feel as though the fire components are very well done and a lot of the service and direction was fully provided. But it's like there's a bit of missing information with regards to actually fully considering and moving forward at this point, and it is tremendously frustrating.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, back
Go
to
ahead,
the
Chief.
Deputy Mayor. I can appreciate those comments, Deputy Mayor. However, I believe that some of those costings to flesh out the second site, this report was done, and you've got site number 1, which is your path of least resistance. And now you have, I'm hearing council saying, okay, we like option number 2, but we need some more costing on what that decision is going to make. So with that, the direction that we're looking for from staff is you want us to proceed. Those are going to have some costs that we need to, if we're going to get those, if you want definitive answers, the consultant today has ballparked it at a high level at, 400,000, I believe he said earlier, for that cutting and retaining wall would be an add-on to the, as the Director of Roads has said, the overall cost of the construction. But if you want a definitive answer for that and a definitive answer for the entrance onto County Road 10, that's going to take a little bit of time and some additional costs with the consultant to flesh those out and give you a definitive, keeping in mind that there's always things once you start down that road of cutting and filling that you could find something that's out of people's control that may be additional.
Just for clarification though, some of those things, it's not necessarily, no disrespect, but the consultant doesn't need to be involved in whether or not we can get a county access out. I would assume that's a staff issue.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Ms. Hurley? Mute. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let you know that part of the report also had, I know that Deputy Mayor made some comments about some of the information was there and some of it was not there. We did take a lot of time going through with each department and the pros and cons. Chief Belfour did identify pros and cons, whether it's from planning, whether it's from the parklands, et cetera, which is within the report. So we did spend we did really look at each one of these properties based on the financial funds that we have today to give you a very, not a very detailed, not getting into the earthworks kind of work that needs to be required, but certainly a high level review of each of those options that were before you today. I think the intent of the discussion today was to take a look at the preliminary discussions that we have on each of those options and the designs and the pros and cons, and see out of those 4 options, does council prefer one? And I guess what we're hearing today is obviously that north of the municipal office and lands that are actually owned by the municipality are the ones that rate more higher than the other. So I guess what we're hearing, if you are looking for further information, and the number one site in your view with council is site number 2, I believe, Bill, is the one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The municipal hall.
The municipal hall for North. We will certainly do our due diligence, but you're right, Mayor McFadden, we do need a little bit more time just to have further conversations with the County of Peterborough. They've been absolutely excellent to deal with. We did try to reach out to them last week, trying to get a little bit of an insight of some of their information on that road, given the new development plan and everything. So we did try to reach out to them, but they haven't had enough time to have that conversation with us. So maybe the best thing to do is, if we got the direction that number 2 site is your preferred option that's before you today, we will ask you some time to be able to go back and have some further conversation. We did speak to Mr. Hancock regarding earthworks and potential timelines and costs on that as well. But obviously, Mr. Hancock would need a little bit more time to consider those options as well. So if you would give us a little bit of time, looking at site number 2 as your preferred option. And as Bill alluded to, there may be some additional costs with our consultant on that. But it was very high level at this time, and that's what we were asked to do. And I do believe we've carried out what was directed. However, that's what we're here to talk about. What is the best site? And if your best site is number 2, that's fine with us as staff. And give us a little bit of time, though, just to research some of the earthworks and potential entrances. And I believe that we could certainly work out something with the developer as well.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Chief.
Sorry, just to add very quickly, I just want to highlight as well, I think it's getting lost in the discussion. It is a good discussion today, and that's what staff's looking for is direction on the site. But the other good news that I think here is that we're also looking for from council is the acceptance of the inclusion of the ambulance into this project. And if that recommendation carries, that's a good news story. We just need to work together on direction with the site. I'm very clearly hearing from council that you want site number 2, the municipal hall, for clarity, fleshed out, and some more costing so that you can make an informed decisions with the fiscal side of things on the overall build. And we'll be glad to do that. But don't forget about the recommendation in regards to the ambulance in the incorporation into this project.
Absolutely. And I guess even just to further that along, I mean, the developer was fantastic and cooperated, obviously, with regards to the construction of the CMCC and doing all the earthworks at the time for that. Mr. Hancock spoke earlier with regards to their cooperation, and we don't have a pricing for it because, quite frankly, they did most of the site preparation for us. I mean, we need to keep in mind, we're trying to work in cooperation with the developer because they're the neighbor next door that are doing the homes, and we haven't signed off on anything necessary for the developer. So we're in this together because all of that land works needs to be done in cooperation. We can't have cliffs falling into the backyards of residents on the north side of that. So it's beyond just the conversation with the county. I'm sure it opens us up for have a conversation with the developer as well to assist us in the construction of a fire hall to meet all the needs of all this growth. Do I have any other hands? I saw Deputy Mayor Graham. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Not to mention the $500,000 for the construction of the community center. It'd be worth acknowledging and thanking again from the developer standpoint. I guess my question is to Ms. Hurley: is there an estimated time or that you think that staff would require to take this direction? Is there a horizon, or are we just going to sort of leave it open-ended? Because I know that we're all in the community is very excited, and to a very well taken point, Bill, about the inclusion of the community of the ambulance bay as well, because that is something that was very hard fought for, and I know that both the mayor and I had many conversations with folks at the county table to try to push that through. I think it was in the first 3 months that I was on council, we were starting those conversations. So it's a testament to staff involved in those conversations that has gone as far as it has to even incorporate potentially more than one. So thank you for all of that work from staff and yourself for that efforts, and to the mayor as well for the continuing ongoing of that. But back to my question, Ms. Hurley, is there a potential time frame that we can work within, or are you asking for us to leave it open-ended at this time?
I think I'm going to interject on that one. First off, point number 2 of the recommendation is something I believe that we can move ahead as a council. I don't believe we have any opposition to inclusion of an EMS bay. So we can figure out the logistics and the timing of all that other, but I think we need to send a clear message as council that regardless of where we locate it, whether it's CMCC, the Lion's Den, or north of the township office, we are in support of that EMS base. So I think let's take that one off the table and deal with that. And then Ms. Hurley and Ms. Page, maybe if you want to come up with wording for the other motion, you've heard where council is with regards to wanting more details on it, but let's not confuse it with the other one which we're all on board with. And I saw, speaking of on board with, Councillor Moore, you had your hand up. I don't know whether that was specifically what you wanted to speak to, but go ahead.
Yes, I did. And thanks through you, Chair. Yes, and my thing is, I'd really rather it was sooner rather than later, because I agree with what you said way back when we don't need to be running on this the next election. I want to see this shovel in the ground long before that happens. And I don't think we need to take another year and a half to get this figured out. And we need the new fire station as well as the EMS space.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sooner rather than later if possible.
Okay, so would it be premature, Ms. Hurley, to approve, like, I just want to deal with the second one. Can we pre-approve that second recommendation, then we'll deal with the rest of it? That council approves the conceptual drawing with the additional drive-through bay for the paramedics to ensure that it meets the needs into the future for both the paramedics and fire services.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna have that motion. Councillor Moore, you're gonna make that motion because you've been a champion of it right from the start, and we got a seconder from Deputy Mayor Graham.
Sorry,
Any discussion on that? Go ahead, Councillor Huntley. Go ahead.
Doesn't number 3 tie directly to that? Like,
I didn't know whether that 57,000, whether that would be changed at all, because we're going to have a different budget part if we have to get into the other.
So
Hurley, we're looking for guidance here. Do you want 2 and 3 or just 2?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. I think what we're hearing is, yes, I like 2 would be perfect, and I support you on 2. Number 3, I do believe the numbers are going to change. We were looking at 57,000. But if we're looking at doing some additional work with Greenview, then that number may change. To point out to Councillor Huntley, I wish I could say yes to that. But I do think that number might be changing. I'm not sure if it's going to be higher or lower if we're concentrating on one site and we're no longer concentrating on 3 other sites. I guess my other question to you is if we would like to get direction on one of the sites, and if the site is the North municipal office site, then that's fine. We'll try to come back with a costing at that time. I'm just not sure what that number might be, Councillor Huntley, at this time.
Well, sorry, Chair, can we not just set the upset limit as 57 and see what Greenville can do with it?
I'm fine with that. Honestly, it's up to council, but I'm fine with that. I just can't guarantee that it's that number. It might, like I said, it might be lower, it might be less if we're only concentrating on one location at this time.
Or
but Councillor Huntley, that's fine.
Or why don't we make, because we're going to have a second motion anyways with regards to the focusing in on the one site to bring back more information, but we could put this as part of it. I just wanted to send a clear message to the county that we've got unanimous support for this EMS extra base, and I didn't want to muddy the waters with anything else. That's muddy with a Y.
But you could, as to Councillor Huntley's comment, approve number 2 or consider approving number 2, consider approving number 3. We do have upset limit. I'm just reading the language in front of me here now. Yeah. Upset limit of 57.9. If that changes, then we'll report back on that as well.
Okay. All right, Councillor Huntley, do you want to add that one in? It doesn't matter to me either way.
Well, I think Councillor Moore was making the motion, so she includes it. I'll second it.
We got a mover and a seconder. Is that okay with Councillor Moore and Deputy Mayor Graham? Councillor Moore, go ahead. As Councillor Moore, you're muted.
Yes, I definitely will go along with that motion.
Okay, all right. So we're going to add in number 3 as well then. And Deputy Mayor Graham, you're okay with it?
Yeah, with my only question being, does it delay the process if it exceeds the $57,000 to simply include it at this time?
Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Deputy Graham, we're going to have to come back anyways. If I'm assuming your number 3 motion might be to for the site, which is the municipal office site. which is item number 2. We're going to have to come back shortly with that, with the information and what those costs would be. So I don't believe it would be any further delay than what we're dealing with today. We still have to come back.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. So moved, so seconded. Councillor Huntley, you're thirding it. You're good with that?
Good thirding.
All right, excellent. Madam Clerk, can you call for a recorded vote?
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Now we will move on to a motion directed specifically to bringing back more information specifically on that site number 2 north of the Township Office. Ms. Hurley, is there anything specific you would like to have in that motion?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Balfour. Is there anything that you're looking for, Chief Balfour, with your discussions with Tyler or Greenview?
So I'm expecting that council's wanting a costing on bringing back a report on the earthworks and retaining wall if it's required, and what those additional costs will be, right?
For site number 2.
For site number 2.
Yeah, and as it relates to the access.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and Wayne, the director of roads, Mr. Hancock, and I, we did have some dates from Mr. Sakota, and we'll set up those meetings and flesh what that is, what the requirements are, and what the requirements are of the county for a second entrance, if it's at all feasible, and get back to council.
And Mr. Hancock, you're also going to give us options where we may tie into infrastructure on Road Street B. However, there might also be an opportunity, obviously cost dependent, that would just be off of the municipal office. Also up for consideration, if you think of our current fire hall, we have one in and one out. It's not ideal. And if so Street B is pushed off 5-10 years, I'm not sure what the timelines are, that there would be an opportunity for the interim at the beginning, similar to the servicing, that you'd be able to come in through the front and you'd be able to get back around and back out if you needed to, so that we don't have to delay the fire hall, for example, another 5 years until Street B comes. Just some of the things to think about in the recommendations that would come back. Ms. Hurley, and then I saw Mr. Hancock.
Yes, for sure.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think we would maybe need to assist the clerk there, because that seemed to be a very long run. That motion seemed to go on for a long period of time. So I think we've got the gist of it, but we might want to just ask Madam Clerk to just clarify the motion before. And before that takes place, if I may, just to Greenview, Tyler, I was just wondering if there was anything specific, if I could reach out to him as well. Is there anything specific he's looking for at this time? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Tyler.
And through you, Your Worship, to respond to the CAO. As I understand the discussion, which has been great and very detailed, we're looking at a site-specific feasibility study for the municipal office site for the new fire hall. With respect to doing the specific grading and development type plan, site preparation planning, there will likely be a requirement to do detailed geotechnical studies on the north side of the site. We have geotechnical on the south and western portion historically for the new water tower. But as this is a post-disaster building, there will be, in order to evaluate this fully, we would be recommending that a geotechnical study be completed, as well as the topographic survey specific to the site. So those are two elements that we would be recommending to staff. They're not included in the fee because they're specific to any given site. So they're independent of our fee, but there's still a service that's required to properly evaluate any particular property. So I did want to bring that to everyone's attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions specific to that.
Very good. I guess my question would be, have we got a relative timeline? Are we talking a couple months? Are we talking a year, roughly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would anticipate that geotechnical studies would likely be completed with a draft report available within 4 weeks of direction to proceed. And then the grading and detailed site-specific studies could be undertaken thereafter. The topographic study or survey could be done at the same time as the field work for the geotechnical. So I'd say optimistically 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks from direction to proceed. Worst case could be 8 weeks, depending on other schedules and availability.
Fantastic. Very good. Any other questions from members of council specific to that request? Councillor Huntley, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I guess the only other piece of this, I mean, for the clerk in the motion is my preference is strongly to exit onto County Road 10, you know, unless the chief says otherwise. But so I don't know whether we're looking at, you know, which orientation of this building we're talking. That would be my first preference.
Yeah, sorry, I was making that assumption. I think we're all on the same page on that one, Councillor Huntley, and I guess I shouldn't have made that assumption because there has been discussion about B, but I was always thinking that you would return back to the base from B, but you'd head out on County Road 10. I think that was so based on our current discussions, that is the orientation of the building, isn't it? That we go front onto County Road 10 or no? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, no, that's not correct. The building would need to be just turned.
Okay.
But
Right.
from the discussions today, and it is the preferred method to come out on the, is it a deal breaker? I think we need to have that discussion before we go too far. If we have the discussions with the county, and there are reasons, when I was talking to Doug and Mr. Hancock can confirm that there may be some challenges or hurdles that you can't overcome. Is it a deal breaker that if we go out onto Street B and return back on Street B? Because I think we need to know that before we go too far.
Well, how long is it going to take you to get that answer? I mean, I think that's pretty important. And if it has to do with traffic or any of those logistics, those can be overcome. So we're looking more along the idea of sight lines, which would come down to costing for taking out the hill or something. What would be unsurmountable?
Well, it's my and I have limited knowledge, but in talking with Mr. Sakota, there's a distance from Street B to the new entrance, and there is a process that you can apply for a variance depending on how close that is. I need to get those numbers and discuss those with the Director of Public Works and Tyler and Mr. Sakota.
Through you, Chair, with all due respect, Street B could be moved.
Yeah.
Or they're controlled lights. Like at the end of the day, they're controlled lights.
So I don't see an unsurmountable one, Chief, but so I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I think we are strong preferences for.
You know what, I would say it is a deal breaker. I think we need to come on to County Road 10, and this is because this just becomes a political football here. It is a deal breaker. It needs to go out onto County Road 10. It's the right way to do it, and we shouldn't be entering into that subdivision. Because quite frankly, if you enter into Street B and you fire on your lights and you don't have a light at that corner with Street B, and you've got 350 homes that are exiting out and heading that way with no light, and you have 3 or 4 lines in that traffic, your vehicles can't even get out of the way for you to enter through Street B in order to get there. So, I mean, that upon itself should become a huge issue. If you enter straight onto County Road 10 and you have control of the 2 lights, it's going to be empty. There's nothing there. So it's a showstopper, and I don't want to play this political football game of sending us into a residential subdivision. Our position is it needs to go onto County Road 10, and if there's an objection, then please bring it back, and if it needs to be dealt with accordingly at County Council, then so be it. But it's important to all of us. It should be going onto County Road 10. It's the right thing to do.
Make it so.
So I guess, I don't know, do we want to hold up this second resolution then until we get confirmation from the county that it's going to be moving ahead? Ms. Hurley, I see you've been patiently waiting. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, not to touch base with regard, well, I understand the direction is that you're interested in having a direct access to County Road 10. And I get that very clearly, and I understand that. I'm sure the chief does as well. It's not as simple. I'm concerned about when you look at the property and the size, and this is maybe a question to Tyler, and you turn it, because right now we've got it designed because we're sort of long and narrow. So if you turn the building as per the the design that we have that's been presented to you. When you turn the building, my question goes to how can we actually make it work within our current property? Because we've got it going in the one direction. And so I'm wondering if you turn the building and you have a direct access, is there enough land to actually take that design that we have that Tyler presented to us on PB01, and can that potentially, when you turn it, I guess that's a question to Tyler, based on the size of the square footage of this building. I don't know, maybe that's putting him on, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Tyler. I'm just not sure if the size fits, the size of the facility or the square footage of the facility fits on the buildable lot space.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the CAO, excellent question. And if the preference is to have entrance and access onto County Road 10, that will be a challenging element if rotating the long axis of the building, as you see it on SP03 in a north-south orientation. Again, we're looking at 20-25 feet in elevation difference, 6-7 meters, relative to existing grades on County Road 10, and to some extent relevant to Future Street B. So we would have to look at that. There may be opportunities to reduce setbacks, zoning specific setbacks that are shown in that sketch to allow some flexibility. We may be able to move the building a little further to the east towards County Road 10 to get a little bit further away from the existing municipal office building. These would all have to be evaluated as part of the feasibility study that's being proposed.
Councillor Huntley?
Through you, Chair, I guess a potential thought would be is if the whole building, even if it can't change the orientation, but if it moved back a little further, is it possible to swing out to exit onto 10? Versus, you know what I mean? Like come out and to swing onto 10 if the building can't rotate.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in response to Councillor Huntley, based on my understanding of the question, we're looking for the option for drive-through bays for the new station. We need the turning radius applicable to the types of vehicles that would need that. On sketch PB01, the concept drawing provides a typical radius that we're looking for, trying to achieve at approximately 12 meters. So that's where this PB01 shape, the area shown in the sketch, is equivalent to each of the sketches SP01 through SP04. So the actual orientation of the building, the internal elements can be flipped or changed, but the size of the building plus the additional drive-through bay that's been accepted by council today would all be included in that. So with respect to rotating the building, we're trying to accommodate a drive-through building design, and we need the turning radiuses for the specific types of buildings, turning radii, specific types of equipment, sorry.
Councillor Huntley?
Follow-up then question or statement, I guess. I mean, I'll leave it to the experts to figure out how to plot this thing on the property. But when you do return with these diagrams, can you include the other structures that are on the property with them? So it's a little bit easier to perceive kind of where things are.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ms. Hurley, go ahead. You got your hand up.
I'm going to take my hand down.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Ms. Page, how are you making out with the formation of your motion? We've been talking for 20 minutes. I'm sure you've captured that in your shortest 20 words.
Through you, Mayor McFadden. I think I have. So I will tell you what I have and you tell me what we want to tweak or we want to go from there. So the council directs staff to report back on the preferred option, number 2, municipal office, and we can use the proper identified map on here if you'd like. What I had originally had was, and to review the entrance and exit options, but it sounds like you want it to include just County Road 10.
So we've got you're showing what the previous recommendation was. Is there any way that you could bring up like your Word document and actually show us? I don't know. I'm having a hard time. I'm a visual person too. Actually read what the motion is.
The problem, respectfully, is I'm not running that, Patty is, and I've got a setup in an office that won't allow me. So in all honesty,
no worries.
I'll just break it down one stop at a time, and you just tell me which part we want to tweak in as we go from there. So the first is that council directs staff to report back on the preferred option, which is number 2, the municipal office.
Okay.
Everybody agrees with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
The second was to investigate entrances and exits. And that's why I left it until you just made the decision to only focus on County Road 10. Entrance and exits on County Road 10. Everybody agrees with that one?
Yep.
To provide cost estimates on earthworks, potentially including a retaining wall and grading. To investigate service options for water, wastewater, and I've left that open because it might come from the municipal office, might be something else that Wayne comes back with. And that's all I have. But in a bracket, I have feasibility study based on what Tyler said, but I don't know if council wants to give Greenview the nod to perform a complete feasibility study, or if I heard council say that you want staff to look at some of these options and you want Greenview to look at other options. So I agree, there's about 400 words, and collaboratively, hopefully we can break it all down into one. So I don't want to misinterpret anything I've heard here. I don't know if you're giving Greenview direction to do a full feasibility study, or if we're breaking it down into components for staff to do some, Greenview to do some. So that's where I sit through you, Mayor McFadden.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Hurley, we want a report to come back based on those informations. The primary thing is the primary exit or primary entrance onto County Road 10. Obviously, the plan is to have that secondary entrance into the subdivision for returning. So we've got that complete drive-through. So it's not to eliminate it completely, but we do want that circular drive-through with the primary being County Road 10. Second part is the earthworks. Third part is the municipal servicing.
Geotechnical.
And geotechnical. And I think we just leave it at that, at however that comes back. That's essentially what council is looking for. Councillor Moore, you got your hand up, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, yes. And this isn't going to mess Cindy up, I don't think. Just one question. How many actual acres is there at the county property to build this fire station and paramedic space on, as comparable to what we were talking about with the CMCC?
Sorry, just for, I don't want to throw this one out there yet. Are you referring to the county yard that's just up the road?
No, sorry. No, the municipal office, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Phew. I thought Chief just had a heart attack over there.
No, I just used the wrong word, sorry.
He just shut his video off and called it a day. I'm just going to tell you, Kathy.
Just after I said I wasn't going to confuse Cindy, I confused you.
It's okay, Chief. Breathe.
No.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy. Sorry.
About the acreage.
What's the acreage north of the township office?
Yes.
I don't know if we know that offhand.
But so not even in comparison to what we were going to try and take from the community center.
Well, the building has to be, Tyler has made, he's had, in the drawing that's before council, he's orientated the building. So there's definitely enough property there to orientate the building and have parking. I just don't know the exact, and I don't want to Councillor Moore's question, give you a number that I just don't know off the top of my head. But when it comes back, we can include that in the report for you. How's that?
That's fine. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Madam Clerk, are we good now?
I will, through you, Mayor McFadden, turn that to CAO Hurley and Chief Belfour. If they are clear, I think we can work with this motion. I just want to make sure everybody is clear, including council and staff.
They're both.
I believe we were clear.
Okay.
And I do appreciate council's direction today. And it is like Ms. Hurley said, it is good discussion. We just need direction to know where we're focusing our time and efforts on. And we want to spend your money and the taxpayers' money wisely in focusing on the right fit for the community. And council sets that direction. And I thank you for that.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Graham, you had your hand halfway up. It was up and down. I wasn't sure. You want?
I'm just going over this motion, or all of it. And I'm just trying to, I just wonder, I understand the dividing it into two separate motions with regards to Staff, I believe, requires direct motion to continue to formalize the pursuit of the entrance with the county, right? That is one that we need direction for 100%, right? And then I just wonder, cannot everything else be summarized in that staff come back with a comprehensive report outlining the costing and time implications for moving forward with this 988 County Road 10 site? Full stop.
Okay. All right. My suggestion is going to be, because I don't like doing complex motions on the fly, I'm going to suggest we take a brief recess. Let me wrap my head around it. And we'll come back and then we can carry on. But we always got to be cautious when we're firing these important motions out at the last second. And it's not to take away from any of the discussion we've had. Let's everybody take 5 minutes and then we'll come back on. Oh. All right, anytime you guys are ready.
I'm good.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Belch, I see you're back. Deputy Mayor Graham. And Councillor Huntley. You're all ready to go. All we need is a clerk.
Clerk is here, Mayor McFadden.
We have a clerk all ready to go. Okay. Ms. Page, do you have a suggested motion that captures our hour-long discussion on the future of the fire hall? What have you got it down to?
That council directs staff to further investigate site number 2 as the preferred option and report back on the financial implications.
Okay, that will cover off any of the things that we've talked about relative to the site access out to County Road 10. It'll also cover off the earthworks and the street B, the municipal servicing, the geotechnical, and anything else that we may have forgotten that staff will think of will be captured under that.
Yeah, even the orientation of the building.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Just I'll move it.
Very good. Excellent. Councillor Moore, second.
Yes, second for sure.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Any further discussion? We have a Councillor Huntley. Okay, and you're not thirding it, I can tell. You have a question.
Just for clarification, was not the CMCC site 2, isn't the site 3 according to the reports?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. I think we're referring to the order as far as the preferred option number 2. But yeah, should we clarify that to Councillor Huntley's point?
988 County Road 10.
That would clarify it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. And sorry, was there a part in there specifically to the priority being set for County Road 10 access? I know they're meant to be. I just thought of that. Sorry.
Be clear on it, yeah.
I think we believe that the financial implications would allow us to have all those considerations. And we do know from council that County Road 10 is the priority unless Madame Hurley or Chief Belfleur have something alternative.
Okay, maybe just include that the County Road 10 be considered the primary access, so that because that will cover off the orientation to Councillor Belch's point as well.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, I can definitely do that. Would you like me to reread the motion so we
Yes.
are all clear? All right.
That would be perfect.
The council directs staff to further investigate 988 County Road 2 as the preferred
10.
option.
County Road 10.
Oh, did I say 2? I meant to say 10. Sorry. I have 2. I had site 2 written over top of it. I apologize. Let's start again. The council if you could see the notes all over this. The council could direct staff to further investigate 988 County Road 10 as the preferred option and report back on the financial implications, with County Road 10 being the primary access.
Perfect.
Access point.
Yes.
So I have Deputy Mayor Graham as my mover and I have Councillor Moore as my seconder, if everybody is still in support of the amended motion.
Got our movers okay?
Yeah.
Seconder's okay?
Thirder's good.
And thirder is good. I was getting to you, Councillor Huntley. Okay. Excellent. All right, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Absolutely. And through you, Mayor McFadden, for the thirder, we will make sure that there's pictures included of the other structures on the buildings on the maps when they come back. So for the recorded vote, Mayor McFadden.
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
And Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Very good. Motion is approved. Okay. Now where do we go from here? Now I got to get back to my agenda. It was a big one today.
It's your favorite topic, Scott.
We've had poor Mr. Hancock waiting in the sidelines to present our next report. That would be report Public Works 2021-10 decorative streetlight inventory and streetlight replacement and request policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, and I do certainly enjoy the conversation over the fire hall, so it hasn't been boring at all. But let me read the recommendations before you. The council adopts the new streetlight streetlight replacement and request policy. that council approves the transfer of $60,000 from the asset replacement reserve in 2021 and pre-approved for 2022 capital budget, the street lighting repairs and maintenance account to cover the purchase and installation of 15 decorative streetlights. There will be an additional decorative streetlight ordered to carry as a spare for a total number of 16 streetlights. And in this report, first of all, I'd like to thank Evan Grieger for doing much of the work on the inventory and research into the streetlights that we have and what we have not only in the downtown, but also in the new subdivision. You will note in the report, we have provided a plan that shows the existing lights in the downtown. We have 37 decorative lights in downtown. 22 are referred to as a type 1. Those are the original lights that were part of the streetscape enhancement we completed a number of years ago, and those lights were not ordered new. They were actually refurbished and put back in place. We have 13 lights that are in the areas outside of the King, more so in the center Union Street area, and then we have 2 lights that are presently on the corner of Union and Center, and just by the Nexicom building is the second light. Those are again shown on the drawing. These, our intent with the report was to indicate to council what we're dealing with in the downtown as far as the difference in the type of lighting. We have provided photos of the types of lights that are referred to as type 1, type 2, and type 3. In addition to this, we've noted some other lights that have been used in the area. One was on McGuire. It's a decorative light. It's specific to that street. And we've also noted in the report the type of light that has been approved as a municipal standard and is the street light that has presently been installed in the Tower Hill subdivision phase 1 and will be used throughout the residential development, specifically in Tower Hill phase 2 and any other adjoining residential developments in the Millbrook development area. We have, I think, in fairness to the mayor, we have received a number of comments in regard to the condition of the lighting, specifically in the areas of Union and Tupper, where the bells on the bottom of the lights weren't fitting, and they weren't of a class that suggested that we'd done a proper job with the street lighting in the downtown. So our recommendation before you is to approve the $60,000 to replace the 13 plus the 2 and have an additional light available in case that one is damaged. We've also brought forward the policy, and the policy was intended to deal with replacement of lights in the downtown, but it also was advising that we do have requests from time to time for new street lights, and we wanted to have something that would, we would indicate to residents we do have to report to council on requests for new lights, and we do have to report to council if there's changes to what we're proposing to use in the downtown or otherwise. So while we're working through the policy and the report, we have asked for these funds to be pre-approved for the 2022 capital budget. Under the financial considerations, the number of 55 is an incorrect number. It should be 60,000. We do believe that we will have funds available possibly in the capital budget. They are not available yet, so we were not able to redirect capital savings from 2021, but we have indicated in the report that if funds do become available, we will direct them to this expenditure. And the intent, I think, overall is one, we had to have a more complete, the staff had to have a more complete inventory of where our street lighting was, what types of lighting we're dealing with, and have some consistency with how we were handling it, particularly in the downtown area or otherwise. So while we're providing information on the inventory, we are asking for approval of the policy and approval to change out the 13 plus 2 lights that are talked about and located on the plan. And we're asking for approval to have an additional one available if something occurs that we need a replacement fairly quickly. We've indicated, I think previously, that the delivery time, even though this is a company in Ontario, the delivery time is 8 to 10 weeks. And we again, we wanted to move forward with this recommendation and approval. So the report is before you for consideration.
Very good. Questions from members of council? See there's going to be an 8 to 10 week for the delivery of the approved pole. I'm assuming that's for the entire streetlight. Any aspect of it would be in within 8 to 10 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, and so that's going to be for the spare pole. So the other one could go up unless there's a freak of nature and we have 2 go down at the same time. They should be relatively quick turnaround.
If with the one spare pole through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, the one spare pole would provide us a replacement immediately. If for any unforeseen reason we have 2 lights down, then that is there would be a delay till delivery.
Okay. My only other concern, and it was raised as part of this discussion, was the concern that they may no longer be carried. They are carried, so that's good, but that certainly raised a red flag moving forward. If during this entire process, a matching one is not able to be found, there's nothing in this policy which indicates what the process would be in order to move ahead. Simply moving ahead with something that doesn't match isn't acceptable. And I think given the nature of the capital costs, a decision needs to be made by council. If we can no longer match it at some point, then council needs to be made aware so that we can plan accordingly, so we can move in a different direction or something, so be it. But I would hate to find in a year or two, if they weren't carried, that suddenly we're down a path of 13 to 15 lights that we've unintended consequence of moving into a different direction that we weren't necessarily aware of. So that would be my only suggestion for council to consider, would be a specific note in here that if and when the lights are no longer carried, that a report's brought back to council for consideration of how do you wish to move forward.
Right, Mr. Mayor, I think that's reasonable. I think that's a good idea. I think through this process, and again, I think we have obtained a comfort level from the supplier that they seem to be a company that's well situated, and they will be available hopefully for a long period of time. But if by chance something does happen, the department should report back to council the changes that might occur because of no supply.
Very good. Excellent. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, not to throw another wrench into that one, but didn't the design of the streetlights go through the Heritage Committee the first time around? Like, would it not go back through them before it came to council?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Huntley, the lights on King Street, as we understand it, were the ones that were formally adopted by the Downtown Heritage Group, and I think are recognized as that. The change out is in line with the lights on King and in the area of Tupper, so they would fall in line what was previously approved by the committee.
Sorry, Mr. Hancock, through the chair. I'm not talking about this change. I'm talking about if there was a fundamental change that these lights never or didn't become available again. And I think the conversation was, a policy to bring it back to council to decide on a new light. And my suggestion is that it probably should go through the Heritage Committee in whatever form it is at that point before it goes as a recommendation to council.
I would agree. I understand where you're going with it. My only suggestion is bring it back to council. We could refer it over to the committee. My only concern is if you refer to a committee that may not exist in 10 years for whatever purposes, then where have you actually referred it? So that then staff doesn't really have the direction. So I'm thinking refer it to council, but to your point, absolutely would need to go through the Heritage Committee or Mr. Hack or variation of whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fine.
Good point.
Did the lawyer?
Councillor Belch. Okay, very good. You're muted. Okay. Sorry, everybody done? Councillor, so Councillor Huntley, point well taken. Absolutely, that would be my understanding. We'll just refer to council for now, but I would expect that it would go under those circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of council? If not, we have a recommendation on the floor with the addition that under the circumstances that the light assembly is no longer available, that it would come back to council. Very good. Councillor Huntley?
I'll move
So
it.
moved. Councillor Moore, second. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, can I just confirm that you would like that amended in the policy?
Yes.
Where would you like? Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Just wanted for clarification purposes. Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Next item. Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Thank you, Mr. Grieger. Next item is
The procedural bylaw.
someone's getting excited. I can hear that. That was our clerk. Report Corporate Services 2021-11 procedural bylaw. Ms. Page, take it away.
All right. So before you is Corporate Services Report 2021-11 for council's consideration. I would like to include under our video equipment and recording devices as well as electronic participation, a section on if our live stream goes down or becomes interrupted, that we have a process in place to address this. Oh, this is, sorry, the computers are all shifted around. So before you, council, for your consideration is the inclusion of that in the procedural bylaw.
Okay, very good. Questions from members of council? Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I understand the intent of it, but I think my problem, I guess, with it is the recording device and the live stream are two different things. And I'm not sure why, if the live stream happens to go down, but we can still record, why would we not continue the meeting and post the recording of the meeting?
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to Councillor Huntley. Currently on page 3 of our procedural bylaw, it says under 3B that the meetings of the council of the Township of Cavan are live streamed and recorded and available for viewing. So that's currently in our procedural bylaw. So as it stands now, the expectation, I'm going to guess, from the public is that they can come on and watch it live stream. So if they decide to join on just at, like, say today for 2 o'clock, for example, and that live stream has broken, we could be in a situation where we have stated that it's going to be live stream, but to that person, it could be considered a closed meeting because they can't see that live stream. I do agree with you. It is recorded and the post is posted for later. But as it stands now, that's not the way the current procedural bylaw is written. So we state that we will live stream them, we will record them at the same time.
So sorry, then, if it's already stated that, then what are we changing?
So if there's an interruption in that live feed,
Oh, we're saying we stop.
we would take a recess for 15 minutes to try to fix the issue. And if we can't, the meeting will be considered adjourned. If we can fix it, we will resume that meeting. It's just giving the public the understanding of what that process is ahead of time instead of real time. Where we've already done something or could end up, in a situation.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation.
Very good. Sorry, I've just got, I'm going to call for recess just quickly because something else has come to mind. I got to deal with it first, and just give me 3 minutes. And I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, we got Ms. Hurley. I believe we have a clerk. Councillor Moore has her mic off, so I believe you are present.
I am.
Very good. Okay. There's no further questions on that, then a motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Councillor Belch, and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next report, Parks and Facilities 2021-02, Tower Hill South Playground Plan and Development. We have Ms. Alves and Ms. Hurley, combined report here.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden and Council, for hearing us today. The Parks and Facilities Department brings to you the following 6 recommendations in regards to the Tower Hill South Playground and Development. That Council approve an expenditure of $73,536.17 to purchase landscape structured children's playground equipment from ABC Recreation. That Council approve an expenditure of $36,361.95 to purchase and install landscape structure adult 13+ playground equipment by ABC Recreation. That Council approve an expenditure of $11,398.14 to purchase and install the landscape structure basketball equipment. That Council approve an expenditure of $4,616.53 to purchase 2 6-foot cast benches. That Council approve an expenditure of $4,662.44 to purchase 2 garbage recycling receptacles. And finally, that Council approve the transfer of $117,517.70 from Developmental Charges Reserve and a transfer of $13,057.52 from Parkland Reserve to fund phase 1 of the project, of the Tower Hill South Playground project, which comes to a total of $130,575.22 after municipal HST rebate. If the municipality is awarded a CHCI grant, then not all the reserves transfers will be required, and therefore only the cost greater than the grant approval will be transferred. Through you, Mayor McFadden, please note that at the time of writing the report, we didn't have word on the grant, but since then have been informed that we were not successful in obtaining the funds. However, we're still looking at other funding options.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? I just want to say this report was very well written. You've put a lot of work into this and we certainly appreciate it. You've done a lot of detail on each of the various options of which you've proposed before us today. You have written out a very clear and concise breakdown of all the appropriate costs. And I know it takes a lot of time to put that together. So thank you. And on behalf of all the council, thank you for all of your time and effort into this report. Any questions from members of council with regards to any of the specific play structure? Wow, you've pleased everybody. Motion to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Councillor Huntley? And Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes, absolutely.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yeah, yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Once again, thank you very much. Job well done.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is report, CAO report and capital status. Any questions for Ms. Hurley? I was going to ask Mr. Connolly if you could just provide us with an update on our Sire Line property.
Sure, Your Worship, through you to the rest of the council, is the township property 1066 Sire Line was purchased, as you know, from the by the township in late part of 2019. I've had direction since arriving here to proceed with looking at getting the background work together to look at how that property could be viewed as being redesignated or rezoned. Part of that work is required pre-consultation, which I had with the county as well as the ORCA and the Ministry of Transportation in February. A number of studies were outlined, 5 studies in fact.
We're good.
Ms. Hurley, your mic's on.
Okay.
Okay, it's off.
Okay, good. Of those studies, there was an agricultural impact assessment, there was an environmental impact assessment, a hydro-G study, traffic impact study, as well as stormwater management. 3 of those 5 are proceeding now. I've looked at and got bids in March and April from 10 bids from 6 different consultants. We've looked at this through the CAO and senior management, decided on the 3 studies to be done by 2 different consultants. That work has already begun, and I expect to, on a timely manner as council comes forward, to update in terms of milestones, the work that's being done with respect to not only those 3 studies, but any other studies and findings as they come forward. That may be a little bit more concise than what you were looking for, Your Worship, but maybe if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. You are on mute.
It's going to happen eventually. There's some shuffling going on that I could hear, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't me, so I muted myself. Someone's playing with change in their pocket. Any questions from members of council on Mr. Connolly's update? Deputy Mayor Graham.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't on mute. Okay. I believe there was previous direction of council with regards to not only the fire hall, but the discussion with regards around the works yard as well. And I believe that direction was about having a comprehensive fiscal analysis about the construction and potential funding options for these 2 capital projects. Is there any update with regards to when we might be receiving those financial sort of analysis or proposals in a report in the next couple of meetings?
So, Mr. Connolly, you're off the hook, and it's over to Ms. Hurley.
Your Worship, if there are no questions, take care.
Don't go too far away. Just kidding.
I'm always here.
Yes, actually, we were trying to bring the 2 reports together, Deputy Mayor. So we were actually trying to bring the reports together. The direction was for both the operational center and the new fire hall. Now, given the fact that our direction today is going to delay a little bit of that time, we were hoping to come back to the June meeting with a financial review of both items, and that was a direction for council. But now that we're waiting for a little bit more background information on the site, which is the municipal office site, we just need to reconsider that. I'm not sure if we'll come back with 2 separate reports instead of the 2 together. So we'll have to take that internally and have that conversation. But our hope was that we were going to come back in June for those fiscal reports.
Very good. Any further questions to any of the items on the capital status list? Seeing none. Okay. Just a motion then to receive those verbal updates. Councillor Huntley and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Council committee verbal reports. Councillor Belch, anything to report on your committees?
I guess we've got a meeting of Mr. Hack on Thursday in the morning. And then in the evening, I've got a meeting with the Ganaraska. And so there's nothing new to report.
Very good. It's the Mr. Hack meeting. Is that the first one for a long time, or is this now the second
I
one?
think, yeah, no, I think this is
That's the first one. We've all been waiting for it.
I don't know whether it's the first one during COVID or not. I'm not sure.
All right, Councillor Huntley.
I'm highly anticipating that Mr. Hack meeting.
Excellent. Deputy Mayor Graham.
Nothing from the local appointments. We did have from a county appointment, we did have a Board of Health meeting last week. And if anyone's interested, I mean, the Dr. Salvatore has been providing bi-weekly updates that are available online and recorded for accessing as we keep going. A couple of updates just briefly, just with regard to the context. As everyone's well aware, the vaccination effort is ongoing and is going to continue to enhance. I believe it's next week. We are transitioning from the Evinrude Center, let's call them sort of more of the off-event sort of council or community rooms in those facilities to the actual ice surface to increase the vaccinations from approximately 900 a day to upwards of closer to 1,300 a day. And that's in light of the increase in supply that's about to come into town with regards to the vaccines, and also increasing availabilities and or eligibilities rather for individuals. So that's obviously critical and very important, and a great development moving forward, and hopefully saving some of the summer as best we can. And the only other thing about that was an ongoing discussion that I'm continuing to have about the wastewater testing and the capability for that to potentially be done at our wastewater treatment plant. Had some very positive conversations with Chris, who is the head engineer who's taking over that initiative. And I know that he's having ongoing conversations with Mr. Hancock about potentially having our facility added to the existing testing effort, or if it can be done over and above from that standpoint. As we know, there's been a local outbreak here locally, and we'd like to make sure that we are, continuing to do everything we can to be as vigilant as possible because of the spreadability of the virology of the variants of concern. So anyways, thought I'd share that, and we'll have more to report at the next meeting, I'm sure.
Very good. Thank you very much for the update. Councillor Moore.
Nothing at this time. Our library board meeting is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Very good. And from a policing perspective, our task force will be meeting along with Councillor Huntley on Friday of this week to review the OPP and the city police proposal to make a recommendation back to our council. And with that, that's all I have. So motion to receive those verbal reports. Councillor Belch and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. There is no general business, no correspondence for information, no correspondence for actions. We'll move right into our bylaws. Bylaw number 2021-30, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between 2636069 Ontario Inc. developer and the Corporation of the Township of Cape Municipality. And bylaw number 2021-31, being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of the meeting. Be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Belch. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. There is no unfinished business. Any notices of motion? Seeing none. Confirming bylaw, being bylaw number 2021-32, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held May 17th, 2021, be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Councillor Huntley and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
And Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Belch and Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
And Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Upcoming meetings and events. Monaghan Public Library Board meeting Tuesday, May 18th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting Thursday, May 20th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. And Committee of Adjustment meeting Friday, May 21st at 9 a.m. via